Aron died in an underground fight arena, only to wake up in Marvel World with an OP power similar to All for One. But in this world, he is a clone, saved by the X-Men. Follow Aron's new journey as he tries his best to fit in this world of endless chaos. The biggest question is, if he is a clone, then where's the original body? Timeline, AU. Harem, so if you aren't into it, don't listen. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Omni-sensei here with What If I Was Reborn in X-Men as Omega-level Mutant? Part 1. If you enjoy this type of content, please brutally slash the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Remember to check out the original story linked in the description. Let's get into it without further ado. My name is Aron. Well, was actually, because I was alive till yesterday. Yesterday, everything went to hell and I died. Died? Did I really die? It's all hazy, you know. Or, maybe it was just too painful that I don't want to remember? Well, whatever. Let me tell you what happened either way. I heard that sharing painful memories helps ease them, or something like that. It was a normal day in my life. That is to say, it sucked. Fighting in illegal underground cage fights was the only way I could earn money to live in this cruel world. It wasn't much, but it was enough for me to get by. But you see, things had been getting worse over the past few days. The usual gambling crowd seemed to be richer than before. And with more money came bigger bets. The people I fought were stronger than before, but I didn't really have a choice in the matter. These mafia bastards would beat me half to death if I refused to fight. So, I took up their generous offers of doubling my winnings if I won. That's how I got here, lying on the ground with broken ribs and a smashed left eye. Oh, bloody mouth too. Crap. I can't feel my body. Right beside me lay that giant fat bastard who broke me. Heh, at least he's dead. I never stood a chance against him though. At least not in a head-on fight like this. The bastard had killed 10 men over the past 2 days alone. Yeah, it was as messed up as you think it is. But what can I do? It's survival of the fittest out there, buddy. He was so fat and heavy that my punches and kicks were barely scratching his skin. But guess what? All he needed to do was throw himself on me, and I would be done for. It hurt like hell too, since he weighed like a truck. But as soon as he slammed me, I broke his windpipe with my elbow and ripped out the nerves from his neck with my teeth. You heard right. I tore out flesh and nerves from his neck with my teeth. It tasted freaking disgusting, but hey, he died, so it's all good. I was taking deep breaths when I heard some guy yelling. Oh man, my vision. Everything was blurry. Then it's over. Crap. I died. Now, here I am. Just floating in this endless space for God knows how long. Or am I just sleeping? It doesn't really feel like it though. My mind feels hazy, but this place is so peaceful. Well, whatever. I'll just float here and sleep, I guess. Suddenly, I felt something tugging me. What was that? Is someone calling me? Who the hell are you? Let me sleep a bit more. My consciousness started fading away, then everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I found myself lying under a clear blue sky. The smell of fresh air and grass under my palm. Birds singing nearby. Am I still dreaming? And who is this girl standing near my face? Ah, blue panty. Arg. My dirty mind. Instead of her beautiful looks, all I could focus on was the tiny piece of cloth between those slender legs. Well, can you blame me? I just died. I didn't know what the hell happened after I passed out, but I somehow ended up here. Maybe this is heaven, and I'll get to see many more girls. Maybe some nude girls. Speaking of girls, the one before my eyes got short black hair, big goggles over her head, brown irises, a pink shirt, and yellow jacket, and a skirt. Wait. My stomach hurts, not indigestion, but actual pain. Arg. You alright? The girl's voice brought me back to reality. What the hell? That hurts. Oi. What is going on here? Is this not heaven? My vision got blurry again. Before I could ask the girl anything, everything began to fade away. Ah crap. I blasted him off again. The girl's voice echoed in my ears. Blasted me off. Again? Then I lost my consciousness again. The same scenery greeted me once again, this time, without any pain. I got up slowly. That girl was sitting right beside me, as if waiting for me to get up. By the way, she kinda looks like one of those characters from X-Men comics. Hee hee. No way. My eyes fell on a couple of teenagers using weird powers around the big open field. One was shooting lasers from his eyes, another one had a big long tongue, and a girl with wings was flying around. There were too many of them. Superpowers? No. That guy cleaning his bike. Ripped muscles, a cigar hanging from his lips, pointy side hairstyle, and that beard style. Wolverine. No way. I'm in freaking Marvel, and if I were to guess, then this place is the Mutant Academy. And since I'm here, I'm a freaking mutant. Hell yeah. I've always wanted superpowers since I read my first comic book. And now that I have them, I can kick ass. Ahem. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, shall we? I still don't know how I got here, nor do I know what power I have. Come to think of it, why is that girl staring at me like that? Oh crap. Don't tell me I have a boner. Ah. You woke up. I thought you were a goner, she smiled sweetly. Thankfully, there was no bulge in my pants. What happened? I asked as I sat up. I'm sorry about that. I can't control my blasts, and I might have ended up blasting you off while stealing. No, I mean borrowing your donut box. She scratched her cheek awkwardly as she confessed. Damn. Those big goggles made her look cute. Please don't complain to Logan, she begged. You're the new guy and I almost killed you. He's gonna lock me up again in the basement. I just know it. He did it last time when I stole his bike and crashed it on the wall. So, pretty please. Her puppy dog eyes looked at me innocently, begging me for mercy. I had never seen such beautiful brown irises before. Damn. I can't be thinking like that. Not when I got here after dying so abruptly. What's your name? I asked. Jubilee, she introduced herself with a smile. Well, I stood up. Don't worry. It happens to the best of us, right? I forgive you. Your blue panty glance was worth it. I chuckled in my heart. She jumped up excitedly. Thank you so much. Jubilee hugged me. No problem. I froze there. Her soft breasts pressed against my chest. Is it getting hot out here? Or is it me? I bet it's me. I should let go of her, but she felt so nice in my arms. I let her go, and she dashed away like a speedy train. Retracing my faint memories, I walked to my room. I gotta find out more about this new me. I stumbled through the hallway, still a bit dazed. The smell of fresh paint and the hum of distant conversation surrounded me, but everything felt surreal. Wait, this isn't fresh paint. My senses. I took a deep smell. Yup. Just as I thought. I can smell paint as if it was fresh, and I can even smell pizza. Who is eating pizza without me? I looked around. I'm slightly hungry. A chubby guy walked past me with a slice of pizza. Arg. Pineapple on top. Hell no. As I walked, I glanced around, trying to piece together what I could remember. Nothing about this place seemed familiar, yet there was an odd sense of déjà vu creeping up on me. My body felt different, stronger, lighter. There was a strange energy flowing through my veins, and it made my skin tingle. It was almost like I had been plugged into some power source I didn't know existed. Doors lined the corridor, each with small plaques. Some bore names I recognized: Jean Grey, Scott Summers. I knew these people. Not personally, but from movies and comics. I looked down at my hands. They didn't feel like mine. They were too smooth and scarless. I reached up to touch my face. No scars there either. I ran my fingers through my hair, which was thick and silky, not the messy mop of greasy strands I was used to. Such a weak body, not that I'm complaining, but putting me in this situation in a dangerous world without any explanation whatsoever. I wonder who brought me back to life in this world. It's like one of those fanfictions. Well, a second chance, huh? At least, it's better than my last life. No point complaining anymore. Finally, I reached a door at the end of the hallway. It didn't have a plaque, but something about it felt like home. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The room was small and sparsely furnished. A bed, a desk, a dresser. On the desk was a small round mirror. I walked over and looked into it, half afraid of what I might see. The reflection that stared back at me was not the one I expected. Gone was the pale, gaunt face I remembered. Instead, there was a young man with a strong jawline, high cheekbones, and piercing green eyes. That's me before I got into the mafia mess and underground fights. I took off my clothes and checked my body. No scars or bruises. My body was perfectly sculpted. How long had it been since I saw my body like this? Too long. The good thing is that my big guy downstairs is still intact. I breathed a sigh of relief. Thank God, no freak mutation or anything down there. I flexed my muscles. It wasn't much, but with proper training and exercise, I could definitely bulk up a bit. Just a little bit would do. Suddenly, I heard a gasp from behind. I turned around and saw a girl with short brown hair, a blue shirt, and jeans standing behind me, her mouth wide open. Wait. How the heck did she get in? I'm pretty sure I locked the door. What are you doing naked? She squealed, covering her eyes. This is my room. Who are you? How did you get in? I remember locking the door. I asked without covering myself. Why bother? I'm pretty damn handsome, if I say so myself. Besides, it's my room, and she barged in, so. Professor asked me to bring you to his office, she said, peeking between her fingers. And I got in with my powers, she added as her eyes roamed my body. Powers, huh? Which is? I asked curiously as I put on my clothes. I can go through walls, she said, blushing as she finally uncovered her eyes. You are Kitty, right? Jubilee's bestie, I asked as I put on my shirt. Yeah, she nodded shyly. I'm Aron, the new guy, I introduced myself. I know, Kitty replied. Everyone knows you. You're the guy Jubilee blasted off twice and almost killed. Almost killed? Damn, that girl's powerful. Wait. Everyone knows me because she blasted me off. I asked, confused. There's that, and there's a rumor going around that you're suffering from amnesia and… Kitty said with an awkward expression as she walked toward me. And… I raised my brows. That you're kinda unstable, Kitty whispered. Unstable? Me? I even have amnesia, which takes care of the memories part. Unstable how? I asked, genuinely curious. I don't know. From what I heard from Jubilee, who heard it when Logan was talking to Storm, who heard it from the professor, you nearly killed Jean and the professor when they went to rescue you from the lab last week. You also took Scott's beam without getting hurt, and his mutation almost disappeared. Then you punched Logan hard enough to send him flying through a wall. That's all I know. So if you don't mind me asking, did you really do all that alone? Kitty said as she stepped back and looked around the room without a care. I mean, she did hear all those things about me being unstable and now saw me completely naked, yet she was acting casual. Wow, I did all that? Well, not that I remember anything. I only remember my name, that's it, I answered honestly. I mean, I don't have any reason to lie to her. The bell rang outside. Oh, look at me, I kept babbling non-stop. Let's go. The professor is waiting for you, Kitty said as she walked through the door as if it was nothing. Dang. Reading comics or watching a movie is one thing, but seeing it live right in front of my eyes is a whole other experience. Anyway, I just hope that Baldy Professor doesn't get into my head. Oh, who am I kidding? Hope, the power that brought me into this reality, gave me some kind of mind protection power. We walked to the professor's office. There was a bald man in a wheelchair with a kind smile. Hello, Aron. I hope you had a good rest, the man greeted me warmly. Yes, sir, I nodded. Kitty, I guess you have your history class next, right? He asked her. Yep. See you later, Aron. Kitty waved and left. Take a seat, he gestured to the chair in front of the table. I sat down. How are you feeling? He asked kindly. Fine, I guess, I answered. I see. Then let's move on to the main topic, shall we? The professor spoke. Sure, I nodded. You don't remember anything, do you? He asked. I shook my head. Other than my name and some vague stuff, nothing else. And right now, I'm doing my best to keep my calm. You know, everyone around me using powers and all. Then those rumors. He leaned forward. I see. You must be confused about what is happening here. Let me explain. You are in Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, or the Mutant Academy if you prefer that term. I am Professor Charles Xavier, headmaster of this academy. I am a mutant as well, and my mutation gives me telepathic abilities. Like reading minds? I asked. I've got to act right now. I'm not exactly sure if I have any mind protection power, but if hope is real, then I might have one. So, my best option is to play my cards right. Yes, among other things, he smiled. So, did you get into my mind? Maybe you could tell me about my past, I asked innocently. Unfortunately, I couldn't penetrate your mind. It was as if there was some sort of protective wall surrounding it. So, I assume you have some kind of mental power. As for your past. Before he could finish speaking, the door opened, and a red-haired woman in a white coat walked in. She had green irises and a beautiful face with freckles on her cheeks. Wow. My lady radar is going crazy. It must be Jean Grey. I'm sorry for interrupting, Professor. But you should tell him the truth and save future troubles, she said, looking at me. Jean, he just woke up, and you want me to drop that bomb on him? Professor Xavier frowned. Drop what? Bomb? What are they talking about? I think it's better to tell him now rather than wait for him to lose control, Jean said calmly. You don't want to repeat the same mistake twice, do you? Professor Xavier sighed heavily, his expression shifting from kind to serious, as though he was mentally preparing himself for what he was about to say. Aron, he began, his tone more solemn than before, what I'm about to tell you may be difficult to process, but you must understand the truth about yourself. You are not who you think you are. The reason you can't remember your past is because you don't have one. I frowned, trying to make sense of what he was saying. What do you mean, I don't have a past? I know my name, and... The professor nodded slowly. Yes, those memories you have, the fragments you recall, are not entirely yours. They were implanted, pieces of a life that was constructed for you during an experiment. The truth is, Aron, you are a clone, an experimental creation that we discovered during our last mission. As for whose clone you are, we have no information. We ran your face through our database, but nothing so far. A clone? An experiment? Those bastards never stop. Anyway, I got a new life and a body, so all good for now. The only problem right now is my mutation. I don't know what my powers are. Jean stepped forward, her expression sympathetic but firm. We found you in a lab, Aron. A facility where scientists were conducting illegal experiments on mutants. You were one of their creations, and from what we've gathered, you were engineered to be the ultimate weapon. When we found you, you were barely conscious, but the power you unleashed in your confused state was devastating. Nice. Tell me more. Devastating? What do you mean? I asked with a serious expression. When we attempted to rescue you, you instinctively defended yourself. You didn't know who we were, and in your panic, you almost killed Jean, Scott, Logan, and myself. The power you displayed was beyond anything we had anticipated. Scott's optic beams were absorbed by your body, as if they had no effect. Our powers were reflected back at us, and you fought with such force that even Logan, with his healing factor, was seriously injured, the professor explained. I'm just a clone with unstable power, huh? I made a grim face as I spoke. It's all right, Aron. You are one of us now, and will help you control your powers. This school is a safe haven for all mutants. Here you can learn to harness your abilities and become a part of our community, the professor said reassuringly. Yeah, right. I read comics and watched movies in my free time in my past life. I know just how safe this place is. Anyway, I'm glad that they can't read my mind. Thank you. I stood up with an awkward smile. I just need some time to think about all this. The professor nodded. Of course, Aron. Take as much time as you need. I know it isn't easy to accept the truth, but we're here for you if you need anything. Yeah, it isn't easy. I turned around and walked out of the room with a gloomy face. It was all an act, of course. In fact, I'm ecstatic that I'm in Marvel. But I gotta play the role of a sad and broken guy, at least for now. I stepped out of the professor's office, the wooden door closing softly behind me. The hallways of the Mutant Academy were alive with the echoes of footsteps, conversations, and pranksters pranking others. I saw Kitty run through the walls and two others chase after her. Walking through the halls of a place I had only known from comic books and movies felt surreal. It feels like a dream. I walked through the hallways thinking about my next step. Since I'm in Marvel and surrounded by superheroes and supervillains, not to mention the fact that all those villains always target Earth, I have to be ready to survive. I need to get stronger, but first, I need to know more about my mutation. If it's just absorption and reflection, then it's kind of OP. But I gotta test it out soon. For now, let's look around this place. I passed a series of rooms where students were engaged in various activities. Some were studying, others practicing their powers under the watchful eyes of their instructors. I turned a corner and found myself in front of a large window overlooking a vast training field. This place was different from where I woke up and met Jubilee. There were energy barriers around it. Below, several mutants were in the middle of a sparring session. Energy blasts lit up the field, some so bright that they left after images in my eyes. I watched as one student summoned a shield of ice to block a barrage of fireballs from another. Might as well check out the area. When I reached the field, I saw a group of students gathered around the sparring area, watching two mutants go head-to-head. One of them, a guy with silver skin and yellow eyes, was darting around with incredible speed, while his opponent, a girl with flaming red hair, unleashed a torrent of fire in his direction. The heat from her attacks was intense, even from where I stood. Damn. Those powers are insane. Walking around, I observed more students, all displaying different mutations. Some were straightforward, like enhanced strength or flight. Others were more unusual, like one guy who could stretch his limbs like rubber. Ha ha ha. He's like Luffy. I can imagine him yelling, "Gomu Gomu no pistol," as he punches people. I chuckled at the thought. Then, I noticed a section of the training field that was a bit more isolated. It was off to the side, where fewer students seemed to gather. Curious, I headed that way. The closer I got, the more I realized that this area was a target range. Several targets were set up in a line, some riddled with holes, others scorched or completely obliterated. And then I saw her, a girl with striking white hair, her back to me, focused on the target in front of her. She wore a tight black suit that hugged her athletic frame, paired with a silver jacket. Her stance was perfect. That had to be Storm. As I went closer and noticed the side of her face. Okay. That's Halle Berry. Yup. No doubt about that. That's her version of Storm. Bang. Bang. She fired 2 shots, each hitting its mark dead center. Damn. She's a good shot. I continued watching silently as she fired round after round, never missing a beat. It was impressive. Finally, when she had emptied her clip, she ejected the magazine and holstered her handgun. Wow, I muttered under my breath, more to myself than anyone else. Without turning around, Storm spoke, her voice smooth and steady. You shouldn't sneak up on people, especially not here. Sorry about that, I replied, taking a step closer. I didn't mean to interrupt your training session. Just got curious. She finally turned to face me, her piercing blue eyes locking onto mine. There was a brief moment of silence as she studied me. You're the new guy, aren't you? She asked, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, I nodded. Name's Aron. Aurora Monroe, but everyone here calls me Storm, she said, though it felt more like an introduction than a greeting. Heard about you. You've had a rough start, huh? You could say that, I replied, rubbing the back of my neck. Still trying to figure out what's going on. Storm nodded, giving me an empathetic smile. Well, welcome to the school. Professor Xavier is a good man. He'll help you sort things out. Thanks. I trailed off, unsure of how to respond. So, you're pretty good with that gun. Do you teach combat classes here? Yes. Firearms, martial arts, and some sneaking skills. I also teach weather manipulation to mutants with atmospheric abilities like me, Storm explained with a smile. Weather manipulation? I asked, feigning ignorance. How does it work? Basically, I can control the weather. I can create rain, summon lightning, and even manipulate wind currents. It comes in handy during missions, Storm replied confidently. Wow, that's incredible, I exclaimed, playing up my amazement. I bet you're pretty powerful. I'd like to think so, Storm nodded. So, since you are here, how about you give it a try? She picked a handgun from the table next to her and offered it to me. It'll help you unload some stress. Trust me. I looked at the gun in her hands. Ah, guns, huh? When you are dealing with mafias and all, guns are the best buddy. And I'm somewhat of a self-proclaimed prodigy when it comes to firearms. So, might as well show off a little. If she asks where I learned, I got that clone excuse. I'll just say I just know, or maybe they made me that way. Sure, why not? I shrugged, taking the firearm from Storm. I held it loosely in my right hand, feeling its weight and balance. It felt good. The grip was firm but comfortable, and the barrel was clean and shiny. Storm pointed toward the target in front of us. Go ahead, take your shot. I lifted the gun and aimed at the target with my left hand. I'm not sure it's a good idea to hold it with a single hand, Storm advised. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing, I said confidently before pulling the trigger 3 times in quick succession. The sound echoed across the training field as each bullet struck its mark. Then I unloaded the entire magazine, firing until I heard the empty click of the slide. I handed the weapon back to Storm with a satisfied grin. Not bad, right? That was quite impressive, she replied, clearly taken aback by my display. Her expression said she wasn't expecting this outcome. Thanks, I grinned, basking in the glory of my achievement. Where did you learn to shoot like that? Storm inquired, curiosity evident in her voice. I don't know. Maybe they programmed me to be a prodigy, I said with a shrug, throwing in the clone card. I'm sorry, she apologized. The fact that I was a clone must have slipped her mind. It's fine, I waved dismissively. Anyway, it was nice meeting you, Storm. But I gotta go. I need to clear my head a bit. Of course. It was nice meeting you too, Aron, Storm nodded, offering me a friendly smile. I returned the gesture before turning away and heading off toward my room. I've seen enough for the day. Hey Aron, as I was about to leave the training field, Storm called out to me. You want to test out your power? She walked up to me. We got a special place where you can test out your power. Wanna go? The door to the underground bunker closed with a heavy loud thud, sealing us in a big chamber that looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. The walls glowed with a dull metallic glint. I glanced around the room, noting the various pieces of equipment and machinery scattered throughout. A row of computers lined one wall, while several large screens hung on another. In the center of the room sat a massive circular platform surrounded by a series of weird machines. Welcome to the danger room, Storm said as she walked alongside me, her voice echoing slightly in the large open space. This place was designed to handle any kind of power or mutation. You could blow up half the room, and it would repair itself in minutes. Now this is big, I said as I looked around. So this is where you train the heavy hitters, huh? Yup, Storm nodded, leading me toward the center of the room. This bunker is equipped with vibranium, one of the most durable materials in the world. It can withstand almost anything, so you don't have to worry about going all out here. Vibranium? Did Black Panther help them with the metal or maybe shield? That's a question for another day. As we walked, I couldn't help but notice the sheer size of the place. The ceiling was at least 50 feet high, and the walls stretched out endlessly, with various sections partitioned off for different kinds of training. In one corner, I saw a holographic projection system flickering to life, simulating various landscapes and environments. It was like a virtual world contained within a fortress. In the center of the room stood a woman I recognized immediately, Psylocke. With her long purple hair and that purple knife she was spinning on her fingertip. Yup, that's Psylocke, no doubt about that. She was dressed in a dark bodysuit, and as she saw us approaching, she straightened up and gave a slight nod of acknowledgement. Aron, this is Psylocke, Storm said, introducing her with a wave of her hand. She's one of the most skilled telepaths and martial artists here. I called her to help with the power testing. Psylocke, I greeted, trying not to let my excitement show. Seeing these characters in real life was still surreal, even though I was playing it cool. Nice to meet you, Aron, Psylocke replied, her voice carrying a certain calmness that was almost soothing. I heard about your situation. Don't waste your time worrying about it. The more you think about it, the worse it'll get. So instead of thinking about what ifs, just focus on the present. It gets much easier that way. So you ready to test out your power? Yeah, I nodded. Though I'm not exactly sure what I can do yet. We'll figure that out, Storm said reassuringly. But first, let's see what your mutation is. Then we can decide your limitations. Psylocke will assist you by using her psionic powers. They're unique, so it should give us a good idea of your mutation's limits. Psionic powers? I repeated, feigning ignorance again. What does that mean exactly? It means I can create weapons and constructs from pure psychic energy, Psylocke explained as she stepped closer. For this test, I'll be using my psionic knife, a weapon that targets your mind rather than your body. We'll see if you can absorb it and what happens after that. Wow. You gonna put it in my head? I exclaimed with surprise. Shouldn't we start small or something? Psylocke smirked slightly before saying, afraid I might mess up your brain? Don't worry, I'm quite skilled with this thing. There's almost no chance of permanent damage. Almost? I repeated nervously. Storm laughed at my reaction. You have nothing to fear. Psylocke is an expert at wielding this knife. If she says it's safe, then it's safe. Fine. I trust you guys, I sighed, deciding to go along with their plan. Psylocke took a deep breath, her hands beginning to glow with a vibrant purple light. Within moments, the energy coalesced into a blade, crackling with raw power. Wait, that's not a knife. That's a freaking foot-long sword made out of pure psychic energy. Holy crap. Wait a sec. How about we talk this out, huh? I said as I took a step back. Damn me. That's a big sword. I don't want to get stabbed by that thing. It's not that I'm afraid or anything. Okay. Maybe a little. In the past, I took punches and survived gunshots, even got stabbed by knives, but that thing is made out of pure energy, and I got a bad feeling about it. Don't you worry, before I could resist, that blade had already stabbed my forehead. I felt a jolt run through my entire body. It wasn't pain exactly, but more like a shock to my system, as if every nerve was being activated all at once. Focus. Storm's voice cut through the sensation. Try to absorb it. You have done it before, you can do it again. You see, mutation often activates in danger. Yeah, easy for you to say. I gritted my teeth and tried to do as she said. I concentrated on the energy, willing it to flow into me rather than push against me. Slowly, I felt a shift. The energy from the blade started to sink into my body, like water being absorbed by a sponge. It was still intense, but the more I focused, the more manageable it became. That's it, Psylocke encouraged, her voice calm and steady. You're doing well. As the last of the psionic energy was absorbed, I felt a strange sensation, a buildup of power inside me. It was as if the energy from the knife had settled somewhere deep within, waiting to be unleashed. How do you feel? Storm asked, watching me with a serious expression. Different, I replied, flexing my fingers as I tried to get a sense of this new power. It's weird, hard to explain. It's like something waiting to rush out. Try releasing it, Psylocke suggested, stepping back to give me some space. Focus on the energy and see if you can project it outward. Imagination is the key here. Visualize what you want and then let the energy take shape. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, focusing on the power within me. At first, it was difficult to find, but as I concentrated, I began to feel it growing stronger. It pulsated inside me like a heartbeat, sending waves of energy throughout my body. I pictured it flowing out of me. At first, nothing happened, but then I felt a surge. The energy began to move, traveling from the core of my being, through my arm, and into my hand. A faint purple glow started to form around my fingers, growing brighter with each passing second. Good, now focus it into a shape, Psylocke instructed, her voice guiding me through the process. I concentrated harder, trying to shape the energy the way Psylocke had. It was difficult, like trying to mold a piece of clay with your mind, but gradually, it started to take form. A small blade of purple energy appeared in my hand, not as defined as Psylocke's but still recognizable. Wow, I muttered, staring at the blade in amazement. Looks like you're a fast learner, Psylocke smiled, impressed with my progress. That's good. Try to create another blade in your left hand. Another? Oh, okay. I did as she said, trying to replicate the same process. This time, it was easier. The energy flowed naturally, and within seconds, another blade appeared in my left hand. Excellent, Psylocke nodded, looking pleased. Now, merge them into a single blade. Merge. I frowned, confused. Yes, just focus on the two blades and try to make them become one, Psylocke explained patiently. It's easier than it sounds. I did as she said, concentrating on the two blades. Gradually, they began to merge, forming a single larger blade of purple energy. It was still a bit unstable, but it was definitely one entity instead of two. Incredible, Psylocke murmured, studying me closely. You're a natural at this. Thanks, I grinned, proud of my accomplishment. 1 week later. Over the past few days, I had spent almost all my time training with Psylocke and Storm, figuring out my mutation. We already figured out my power to absorb abilities and use them as my own. It was similar to Rogue's, but unlike her, my touch doesn't affect others. But what was even more surprising was the fact that I could give those abilities to others, even if only temporarily. I tested it out during one of our training sessions. Psylocke had created her psionic blade, and after absorbing its power, I managed to transfer it to Storm. She wielded the psionic blade as if it were her own for 5 minutes. As I approached the door to the danger room, it slid open, revealing the massive chamber within. Storm and Psylocke were already inside, waiting for me. The room was different today. The central platform had been replaced by a series of training modules designed to test various abilities. Obstacles, targets, and energy fields flickered around the room, ready for whatever we had planned. "Morning, Aron," Storm said with a little smile. Today she was dressed in her white and silver suit, and kinda looking hot. I could see her nice cleavage popping out thanks to that tight costume. I can totally understand why some men here are crushing on her. Storm is a total babe. As for Psylocke, she was in her purple suit, but those exposed parts of her toned body still looked very hot. I really love her thighs and oh, that well-toned tummy. "Morning," I greeted back with a friendly grin. "So what's on today's menu? More obstacle courses or maybe target practice?" "Actually, we're going to try something different," Psylocke replied as she walked toward one of the training modules. "We need to see just how far you can push your mutation." Absorbing my psionic energy was impressive, but now we need to find out what else you can do. How many powers you can hold at once, how long you can sustain them, and what happens when you transfer multiple powers to someone else. Sounds like a lot of experimenting, I chuckled. You've made incredible progress this week, Aron. The more we understand about your mutation, the better we can help you control it. Storm said as she fiddled with the console. I've called in some others to help us out. The door on the far side of the chamber opened. I turned to see a group of mutants stepping into the room. Bobby Drake, also known as Iceman. Kitty in her tight black suit. Jubilee entered next, her bright yellow jacket, and this time she was wearing jeans instead of a skirt. Finally, Colossus, the giant mutant with a heart of gold and a body of organic steel. Dang. He looks bigger than I thought. This is my first time meeting him. He was away on a mission and came back last night. Jubilee ran up to me. Hey, Aron. Long time no see. Yo, Ubase. I greeted, giving her a fist bump. Looking good. Thanks. You too. She gave me a wink. Jubilee and I got pretty close during my stay here. We hung out a lot together, playing video games, watching movies, and even playing basketball and volleyball a couple of times. She was really fun to be around. Kitty didn't say much, except for a little hi. Well, considering our first encounter where she barged into my room when I was but naked, she's probably still a bit embarrassed. Iceman, on the other hand, was chill as always. Hey man, you ready for some action? Hell yeah. I replied, grinning broadly. So what exactly are we doing here? Kitty asked, glancing around the danger room curiously. Storm motioned for the group to join us in the center of the room. Today, we'll test how well Aron can absorb and combine multiple powers. Each of you will lend him your abilities, one by one, and we'll see how he handles them. If everything goes well, we'll also see if he can transfer those powers to someone else. Jubilee stepped forward, her energy crackling faintly around her fingertips. So, are you gonna light up like a firework, or what? I couldn't help but smile. Guess we'll see. Storm nodded at Bobby. You're up first. She activated the danger room. The room changed into an open field. Trees lined the edges, while a large pond sat in the middle. Alright, hit me. I extended my right hand toward Bobby. Okay, don't complain if you freeze your ass off. Bobby grinned as ice crystals formed over his skin. Suddenly, a blast of frigid air shot out from his palm, enveloping my hand. Shit. That's cold. I shivered slightly, feeling my fingers going numb. I felt a familiar jolt, a tingling sensation that started at my fingertips and spread through my entire body. Within seconds, I felt a chill run down my spine, and I knew that I had absorbed his ice-manipulating abilities. I don't feel cold anymore. Okay. That's enough. Try it out, Bobby said, stopping his power. I clenched my fist and covered my body with ice. All right. I raised my hand and focused on the cold energy flowing through me. Instantly, ice crystals began to form in the air around my fingers, shaping into a sharp icicle that I launched at one of the targets across the room. The target shattered on impact, ice shards scattering everywhere. Holy shit. That's awesome. Jubilee exclaimed in awe, staring wide-eyed at my icy form. Language, Colossus warned Jubilee as he patted her head. Sorry, she apologized, blushing a bit. Iceman pumped his fists. That was great. Next, it was Kitty's turn. She stepped forward, phasing through Colossus as she approached. Arg. Why do you do that every time? Colossus said as he rubbed his arms, and I'm pretty sure he shivered a bit. When our hands touched, I felt a strange shift, like my body was becoming less solid. I took a deep breath and concentrated, willing myself to phase. My hand began to blur, and I was suddenly passed through Kitty. Whoa. That feels weird. Kitty exclaimed in surprise. As I pulled away from her, my body returned to normal. It was disorienting but manageable. I could definitely get used to this. I was still maintaining my ice form alongside Kitty's phasing power. Ha. Now you see how weird it feels every time you barge into others' rooms, I said with a little smirk. Hey, that was a one-time thing. And you were. Ahem. Kitty blushed a bit, remembering the incident. Whatever. She elbowed me a little as she walked past me. Tisk, ice. You gotta try harder, Mississippi. Kitty, I said teasingly. Me next. Jubilee jumped up excitedly, waving her hands in the air. Come on, Aron. Let me blast you again. Again. Storm arched a brow at Jubilee. Ah, never mind. Jubilee quickly shook her head, realizing her slip of the tongue. She quickly touched my hand and used her explosion ability. I felt another jolt. The energy flowing through me felt different, hotter. It was freaking unstable explosive power. No wonder. She keeps blasting things and people left and right. I need to be careful with this one. I closed my eyes and tried to control the energy flowing within me, shaping it into small spheres that I could launch at targets. As I opened my eyes, I saw several fireworks exploding in the air around my fingertips. Wow. You can control it that easily. Jubilee said with a surprised expression as she looked at the tiny explosions around my fingertips. I can understand why you blast things off all the time now, I said to Jubilee as I controlled my explosions. This is some crazy unstable energy. It kinda makes me want to just let it explode. Hey, I do not do it all the time. As soon as she said that, everyone looked at her with an unconvinced look. Okay, maybe a few times. But those glares at her continued. Alright, fine. Many times. Jubilee said as she lowered her head in embarrassment. Colossus stepped forward last. So, should I just hit you or? I don't want you to get hurt, he said to me hesitantly, clenching his gigantic metal fists. Don't worry, I replied, grinning broadly. I'll be fine. Hopefully, fine. Colossus nodded. Okay then. Here I go. His metallic skin hardened into organic steel. Suddenly, he swung his fist at me. I held my palm up, catching his massive metal fist like a pro. Dang. That was a heavy punch. I almost got pushed back, but I felt my body harden and my muscles swell. My skin took on a metallic sheen, and I knew I had absorbed his power to transform into organic steel. Cold smoke was rising from my metal body as I maintained all the powers at the same time. Colossus pulled his fist back. I absorbed all the power and reverted back to my human form. Now let's see how you handle all of these together, Storm said, her eyes gleaming with excitement. I took a deep breath and focused on combining the different abilities. First, I phased through a nearby tree, then, as I emerged on the other side, I covered my arm in ice and launched a burst of Jubilee's fireworks at another target. Finally, I transformed into my steel form, feeling the sheer power coursing through my body. I was able to switch between and combine the powers seamlessly. Each one flowed into the next without any hesitation, as if they were all meant to be used together. Incredible, Storm murmured, clearly impressed. You're handling this better than I expected. Feels pretty natural, I admitted, a bit surprised at how easy it was to control so many abilities at once. Omega level or beyond. Psylocke mumbled under her breath. Now, how about we take it up a notch? Try to transfer multiple powers to someone else, Storm said as she walked up to me. If you can transfer more than one power, it could open up endless possibilities. Psylocke stepped forward. I'll be your volunteer. Colossus stepped forward. Let me. If things go wrong, it could be dangerous. Let me be the one to test it. My body is strong enough to withstand the blow if something happens. I wasn't sure how to feel about that. The idea of experimenting on someone, especially with powers as unpredictable as mine, made me uneasy. But at the same time, Colossus had a point. His body was far sturdier than most, and if something went wrong, he had a better chance of walking away unscathed. Psylocke nodded in agreement. He has a point. Storm nodded and gestured to Colossus. Go ahead, Aron. Try to transfer multiple powers to him. I placed my hand on Colossus's shoulder. Ready? Colossus nodded. Ready. The transfer was always easy. I had done it with Psylocke and even with Storm before. I decided to start with Bobby's ice manipulation. I focused my thoughts, transferring the ability to Colossus. The familiar jolt ran through my body. I watched as frost began to creep up his arm, coating his metallic skin in a layer of shimmering ice. He flexed his fist, and I could see the cold energy responding to his will. Good, Colossus said, nodding in approval. I can feel it. All right, here comes the next one, I said, my voice slightly tense. I focused on Kitty's phasing ability, trying to channel it into Colossus. This was the real test, transferring a second power while the first was still active. For a moment, it seemed like everything was going smoothly. Colossus's form flickered slightly, and I could sense the phasing power starting to settle into his body. Then suddenly, everything went wrong. I felt a sudden surge of resistance from the energy. The two powers seemed to clash inside him, their opposing natures fighting for control. Then there was his own mutation. Aron, Colossus started, but before he could finish, there was a loud boom. A burst of energy exploded outward from Colossus, knocking us all off our feet. I was fast. I used organic metal armor around me as I hit the ground hard, sliding across the smooth metal floor until I finally came to a stop against the wall. If not for the absorbed powers earlier, I would have suffered a concussion or worse. Psylocke was quick to react as she created psionic shields around the others, preventing injuries. But Colossus, unfortunately, was not so lucky. The explosion was far more powerful than any of us expected, and it threw Colossus into the wall with incredible force. When he fell to the ground, cold smoke began to rise from his body, and he was flickering. His own mutation was shifting over his body, changing to human form and metal form, and back again rapidly. Psylocke rushed to him. Pyotr. Storm was by his side in an instant. She knelt down beside him. Shit. I dashed to him and grabbed his arm, absorbing the power back. His mutation stabilized instantly. I sighed in relief. Psylocke helped him sit up. Are you okay, Pyotr? Colossus groaned, rubbing his head. My ears are ringing, but other than that, I'm fine. He stood up, rubbing his head. Well, it seems only one power can be transferred at a time, Storm said, standing up and brushing herself off. But it looks like you retained the power even after transferring to another person. That's a good thing. Yeah, seems like it, I said as I clenched my metal fist, and then reverted to my regular form. Now this is fun. It's like all for one quirk from MHA. I wonder if there is a limit to how many mutations I can absorb, but more importantly, does this power only work on mutants or other superhumans like Captain Marvel or Hulk? What if I use it on Doctor Strange? Will I get his magic abilities? Too many questions. I'll find out eventually. For now, I'll absorb as many mutant abilities as I can. Storm glanced at Colossus, who reverted back to his human form. Was that explosion strong enough to make you turn to your human form? He nodded. Yes. It was very powerful. I'm glad I was here, or else one of you would have suffered a massive injury. Damn, I hope this doesn't happen when I absorb too many powers at once, I said as I scratched the back of my head. It's something we'll need to keep an eye on, Storm agreed, crossing her arms thoughtfully. That's it for today. And the rest of you, better keep his power a secret from others. We don't want unnecessary rumors spreading around. Kitty and the others nodded, understood. Storm turned to me. Good job today, Aron. You did well. She patted my shoulder gently. I nodded and gave her a small smile. Thanks. Third-person POV, Xavier's office. Storm told Xavier everything about Aron's situation and the tests they had been performing over the week. Professor Xavier frowned, leaning forward slightly. That's troubling, but not entirely unexpected. The nature of Aron's powers is still largely unknown. It's dangerous to push the limits too far, too soon. Storm nodded. I agree. But there's something else. His abilities are more complicated than we thought. He retained the powers he transferred, even after giving them to Colossus. That means he's still holding onto every mutation he's absorbed. Xavier rubbed his chin thoughtfully. I see. This ability of his can become very powerful, but the risk. Exactly. If Magneto finds out about this, there's no telling what he might do. Aron's power is dangerous in the wrong hands. He could be swayed, or worse, Magneto might try to take him by force. Storm clenched her fist tightly. There was a long pause as Professor Xavier considered her words. With his mind like a blank canvas without any past memories, manipulating him would be easy for Eric, he nodded in agreement. Besides, I'm worried that the people behind the cloning project might come for him too. They created him for a reason, and if they know what he's capable of now, they won't let him go easily. He's not just a clone, they'll see him as a weapon. Erase the memories. Storm said quietly, glancing at Xavier. Everyone related to that mission, and everyone who knows that he is a clone. Replace it with something else. I'm sure you can think of something. Then you can talk with Aron, and tell him about the dangers around him. That should be enough to delay the inevitable. And I've already made sure to erase all the tracks related to that mission. Xavier leaned back in his chair. 3 days later, Aron's first-person POV, the professor and I had a little chat. Turns out those bastards who were involved in the cloning project might come after my ass. So, he replaced everyone's memories with a fake one. My new past. I'm an orphan and Professor Xavier found me after I accidentally froze the orphanage when my mutation first awakened. Due to my unstable power burst, I ended up hurting myself, resulting in an amnesia. As for my mutation, since I still have Bobby's power, he decided to go with ice manipulation. Well, that should be a good enough excuse. As for who else knows about my real identity other than the professor was Jean. And since he can't get into my head, I still remember my old life outside the Marvel world. For now, things should be stable. And I must get stronger as fast as possible. Just absorbing powers isn't enough. I must master them properly. Oh, as for who's in charge of training me now that he replaced others' memories, well, it's Jean. Storm and Psylocke still remember our training sessions, with a tiny change. Instead of power absorption and transfer, they know it as ice control. 1 month later, other than training, I did some research, trying to find out the timeline I was in. But it's kinda messed up because we don't have Avengers yet, but there's the Fantastic Four and S.H.I.E.L.D. Then there's us, the X-Force. And the good thing is that the New York incident from the movie is yet to happen. Some of the events, from what I was able to gather from the internet, match with the movies, while others match comics. In short, I'm in a jumbled-up reality. The only advantage I have right now is the weakness of villains, heroes, and some of the events, which may or may not occur. So, gotta prepare for the uncertainty. It's snowing outside. Winter has finally arrived and damn, I love it. Now, some might wonder who in their right mind likes winter and snow. Well, me. I freaking love winter. The cold temperature, the snow, the freezing rain, and all the warm clothes. Sitting near the fireplace on the couch, covered in a blanket with a cup of hot chocolate and watching a movie. That's heaven. Not to mention outdoor activities like skiing, snowboarding, sledding, etc. Okay, I admit, I sound like a kid, but who cares? I'm going to enjoy my winter as much as I can. In my past life, this was the only season I didn't have to fight as much as I fought in summer. Damn, summer is just pure hell. The heat is unbearable. Anyway, coming to the present. I'm standing on the outdoor training ground. The air and snow are crisp. Snow is falling around me slowly. The cold breeze feels great. A thin layer of white snow covers the ground. For the past month, I had been training hard and without any thoughts of a normal life, mastering the ice powers inherited from Bobby Iceman. To the world, that was my sole mutation, and I played that part well. But in truth, ice manipulation was only the tip of the iceberg, pun intended. I can enjoy life as much as I want after I become strong. Till then, I'll train without any breaks or other thoughts. Every day, I challenged myself to reach new heights. I began by improving my ability to control temperature, mastering the art of freezing moisture in the air without much effort. Now I could turn entire fields into frosty landscapes with just a wave of my hand, create detailed ice sculptures in an instant, and build protective ice walls that could resist missile attacks. Cyclops was like WTF. How can ice be that strong? Yup. I managed to stop his beam with the ice wall I created. That shocked everyone, including Professor Xavier. I mean, even Bobby can't stop his beam with his ice power. My power and control over it grew more refined each day. But simply controlling ice wasn't enough. I needed to become an expert at it. I concentrated on improving both my speed and accuracy. Storm had talked about Bobby's powers having Omega-level potential, and I aimed to fully unlock that potential. I practiced lowering temperatures to absolute zero and making incredibly strong ice structures. My favorite move soon became creating spiked ice armor, covering my body with a layer of nearly indestructible ice. Next came moving around the frozen land that I created. I mean, if I can't even move around ice, then there isn't any point in using it. The answer was easy. I learned to control the ice under my feet, and it felt like surfing. It was easy, and before long, I could just move around while creating ice constantly. It's like using the moisture in the air to create ice and surf on it while maintaining balance. Then came the hardest part, running or walking in the air, using the moisture in the air as the support. I thought it was cool to just walk in the air or run, but after a few days, cool my ass. It's freaking hard, no matter what I do. I can't walk more than a few steps in the air. The problem is that the thin ice formed from the moisture wasn't strong enough to support my body weight, and freezing each molecule equally to support me is, well, it's super hard. So, I need to figure out a way around it. So, after a month, here I am, standing in the snow, trying to figure out a way. I stood there, the falling snow swirling around me as I focused on the moisture in the air. Walking on air, simple in theory, but in practice? Far from it. The molecules were too small, too scattered, to create a consistent platform. I needed more precision. My breath formed clouds in front of me as I muttered to myself. Okay, if walking doesn't work, maybe freezing steps in intervals? I concentrated, spreading my awareness across the cold air. I lowered the temperature around me to form solidified patches of ice under my feet. As soon as I stepped forward, the first patch dissolved, and I formed the next one mid-step. It was a bit like jumping from one stepping stone to the next, except the stones were tiny, thin sheets of ice. I managed 3 steps before the 4th patch crumbled under the weight. Damn it, I muttered as I fell back into the snow. But I wasn't discouraged. My ice abilities had grown far beyond what they were at the start, and I wasn't about to give up now. I dusted the snow off and stood again, glancing at the trees nearby. The branches were covered in snow, bending slightly under the weight. Maybe the key wasn't about trying to make the ice too solid. Maybe I had to rely on flexibility. I reached out my hand and willed the air around me to freeze, forming not flat steps, but curved tendrils of ice like the branches of a tree. I took a tentative step onto one of the ice tendrils. It swayed under my weight, but didn't break. I shifted my balance carefully, creating a second tendril in front of me and letting the first one disappear. It was more like balancing on a tightrope than walking on solid ground, but it worked. I grinned. That's more like it. It was slow progress, but progress nonetheless. My body adjusted to the unstable footing as I created tendrils faster and faster, shifting from one to the next. I made it across the training field without touching the snow once. Finally, a way to walk on air, even if it wasn't the most practical yet. Nice work, came a voice from behind me. I spun around to see Jean standing there, arms crossed, watching me with an approving smile. Her presence wasn't surprising. She had been keeping an eye on my training sessions lately. I'm trying, I said, letting the ice dissipate and dropping back to the ground. But it's a lot harder than it looks. Jean nodded. Controlling something that isn't solid, like air, requires a different kind of focus. You're doing well though, she paused, her gaze softening. Anyone else would have given up by now. But you keep going. Gotta do at least this much if I want to get stronger, I shrugged. True enough, Jean smiled. But remember to take some time to rest every now and then. Sure thing, Sensei. She chuckled. Sensei? I like the sound of that. I couldn't help but laugh along with her. Oh, so she can laugh and have that soft expression, huh? It's so different from the usual serious look she has. I can't help but smile at that. Something on my face? She asked with a raised brow. Nope, nothing, I replied, shaking my head. Well, we should head back. Don't ignore your health over training, Jean reminded me. Of course. I'll be right there, I nodded. She walked away, leaving me alone in the snow. I watched as the snowflakes landed on my open palm and closed my hand, freezing them. I opened my hand to see a small snow crystal on my palm. I wonder what I should do after mastering my mutation, I muttered as I crushed the snow crystal. I shook my hand, scattering the remains of the snow crystal, and followed Jean back to the academy. Next day, today the vacation starts. Some of the kids are going home while the rest will stay at the academy as always. As for me, I'm staying since I have no family waiting for me. Maybe I'll take a walk outside around noon. Anyway, I was in my room. Lying on my bed, a knock on the door woke me up from my sleep. I grumbled a bit as I sat up. Who is it? I asked as I rubbed my eyes. You ain't but naked again, are you? Kitty's voice came from the other side of the door. I groaned. No, I'm not. Good, 'cause I'm coming in. Kitty phased right through the door, not bothering to wait for an invitation. She popped her head in first, smirking when she saw me sitting there in a half-awake state. Morning, sleepyhead, she said, stepping fully into the room. She looked way too chipper for someone who should still be asleep. Morning, I mumbled. What's up? And why do you care if I'm naked? You've already seen everything. She laughed. Well, I'm trying to respect some privacy around here after that incident. You never know what trauma I'd have to live with if I caught you in an embarrassing position. You know, some have some weird fetishes and I don't want to scar my mind. I rolled my eyes, throwing my blanket over my legs. So what's going on? Jean sent me, Kitty said, sitting on the edge of my bed. She figured you'd want to join us for breakfast before the big winter break officially kicks in. It's tradition, after all. Breakfast? Right now. I raised a brow. Since when is that a thing? She shrugged. Since forever. Maybe you were too busy with your intense training to notice. I sighed, pulling on a hoodie. Fine, I'll come. But I better not see weird holiday sweaters or I'm out. Kitty laughed. No promises. You know how festive the professor gets. We made our way downstairs, where the dining hall had been decorated for the season. Tinsel, wreaths, and even a giant Christmas tree stood near the windows, casting colorful lights across the room. Most of the students who hadn't gone home were already there, chatting over plates of pancakes, eggs, and bacon. And yes, there were plenty of holiday sweaters. Ugh, you weren't kidding, I muttered, spotting Logan of all people wearing a hideous sweater with a reindeer on it. I think my eyes are burning. Kitty snorted. That's Jubilee's idea. Hee hee hee. Just wait until you see Beast's sweater. It lights up. I face-bombed. Of course it does. Jean waved us over from the far end of the table. She wasn't in anything festive, which was a small relief. I grabbed a plate and sat down across from her, trying to act like I didn't notice the mountain of food on her plate. Morning, Jean greeted with a smile. Sleep well. Sort of, I replied. Until Kitty here barged into my room. Oh, come on, it was a polite intrusion, Kitty defended herself, piling syrup on her pancakes. I shook my head and dug into my food. For a while, we just ate in peace, chatting about nothing important. The energy in the room was light, and it was a nice break from the usual intensity of the academy. So, got any plans for the break? Jean asked me as she finished her coffee. I shrugged. Not really. Figured I'd stay here and keep training. Maybe enjoy the snow a bit, and if I'm lucky, I'll find a job. Can't stay penniless all the time, can I now? All work and no play, Kitty said, wagging a finger at me. You need to relax sometimes, you know? I relax, I countered. I just do it while freezing things. Jubilee walked toward us, hearing our conversation, and joined in. Maybe you could join us for some actual fun this time. We're planning a snowball fight later. The kids are really excited about it. I arched a brow. Snowball fight? Isn't that a little childish? Yes, Jean said with a grin, and it's a great way to let off steam. Think of it as training if that makes you feel better. I think I'll just take a walk outside. I don't remember the last time I went out, so, yeah. I trailed off. I was surprised by the chorus of disappointed groans that followed my declaration. Kitty even gave me puppy dog eyes, as if that would convince me to change my mind. No. You ain't gonna play that card against me. Not happening. I just want some time alone away from you. I pointed at Kitty, and you, I pointed at Jubilee. Jean chuckled, and I turned to her. Don't you dare join them. Well, I guess I'll join you then if you don't mind, Jean offered. A walk sounds nice. Plus, since you want to make some money, I know the perfect place. The last part, she said through telepathy. Ah. Sure, I replied, and Jean smirked, knowing she got me. Kitty frowned. Really? You too? I thought we were friends. What happened to girl power? Girl power is fine, Jean said. But we all need some space sometimes. You and Yubeis should understand that. The girls looked at each other, shrugged, then nodded. Kitty threw her arm around Jubilee's shoulders. Fine, as long as you bring us pizza when you get back, we're good. Deal, Jean agreed. Now finish your breakfast and clean up. And don't go blasting things up again, Jubilee. She then turned toward Logan. And you better keep an eye on them instead of fiddling with that old bike of yours. Logan grunted, but he didn't argue. Kitty and Jubilee stifled their giggles before digging into their food. After breakfast, I went back to my room, hoping to squeeze in some more rest. It wasn't that I didn't enjoy the festive atmosphere. It was nice to see everyone in a good mood for a change, but after a month of intense training, I needed every bit of downtime I could get. Besides, I had a feeling that if I stuck around the dining hall any longer, I'd get dragged into their pace, and there was no way I was letting that happen. I collapsed on my bed, the warmth of my room a stark contrast to the winter chill outside. The sound of muffled laughter from the hall filtered through the walls as I pulled the blanket over myself. I closed my eyes, letting the calm wash over me. In the back of my mind, I wondered what Jean had meant earlier about a way to make money. The academy covered basic needs, but having a bit of cash wouldn't hurt. Maybe she had some side gigs lined up, something that wouldn't require me to show off my mutation too much. After a couple of hours, I woke up feeling more refreshed. Glancing at the clock, I noticed it was nearing noon. Time for that walk. I threw on my usual winter coat, making sure to pack a pair of gloves, and headed downstairs. Jean was waiting for me at the entrance, already bundled up in her coat and scarf. Ready? She asked. Yeah. Lead the way. We stepped outside, and the cold hit me immediately. The fresh layer of snow from last night crunched beneath our boots as we made our way across the academy grounds. The trees, heavy with snow, lined the path, and the sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the pristine white. For a while, we didn't talk. The quiet was comforting. Jean walked beside me, hands stuffed in her pockets, her breath visible in the chilly air. As we reached the gates of the academy, I finally broke the silence. So, you gonna tell me where we're going? Or is this some kind of top-secret mission? Jean smirked, glancing at me from the corner of her eye. It's not a mission. But it is top secret. She paused, and I could hear her voice in my head again. Especially from the professor. That caught my attention. I raised an eyebrow but didn't push her for details. We continued walking, leaving the academy grounds behind and heading into the city. The streets were bustling with people doing last-minute shopping, cars honking as they navigated through the holiday traffic. We eventually turned down a quieter street, the buildings becoming taller and more commercial. A neon sign ahead flashed in bold letters, Lucky Star Casino. I stopped in my tracks, blinking in disbelief. A casino? I asked out loud, turning to Jean. She grinned. You said you needed money, right? I know a few tricks to help with that. She nodded toward the building. Come on, it'll be fun. Wait. Don't tell me. I muttered, hesitating. She uses her power to win in a casino, ha ha ha. Dang. I like this, Jean. Not if you play smart, Jean replied, her smile growing. And like I said, don't tell the professor. He'd lecture us for weeks. As we stepped deeper into the casino, the noise enveloped us. The chime of slot machines, the clattering of poker chips, and the low hum of conversation filled the air. The scent of freshly brewed coffee and something sweet was in the air, probably from the cafe at the corner of the main hall. The energy in the room was electric. People hunched over slot machines with hopeful expressions, groups of friends crowding around blackjack tables, and a few solitary gamblers who looked like they hadn't left the place in days. I shot a glance at Jean, who looked entirely comfortable, her casual demeanor hiding any hint that we were up to something that might get us in trouble. "So what's the plan?" I asked, keeping my voice low as we weaved through the maze of tables and machines. Jean smirked, glancing over her shoulder at me. "The plan is to not get caught. But more importantly, it's to win. They got mutant detectors around. You do know that, right? The moment you use your power, the alarms will go off," I said as I took a look around. The guards here also looked burly, and I'm pretty sure they got guns. Yeah, I kinda robbed most of the casinos around the area, so they took new measures. Every machine in here has one of those detectors. And even the cards and chips, not to mention these workers or dealers. "So I'll be caught if I use my power to play," Jean said as if it wasn't a big deal. She spoke through telepathy. "Let's talk through telepathy from now on." I gave her a slight nod. "So using ability is alright, but the moment one uses it to play, it's game over. There must be some kind of AI monitoring everything, huh?" "So?" I raised my brow. "That's where you come in," she replied with a sly smirk. "Ah. Since I'm a clone. You guys must have tested something on me when you rescued me, didn't you? Hank must have taken my DNA and found my genes are different than other mutants. They can't detect new undiscovered genes. That's all I could think of. So, am I right?" I raised my eyebrows. "I'm pretty sure they are hiding more than that. I'll find out eventually." "Wow. Nice job, detective." "Yup, new genes. Although detectors doesn't work, some high-quality suppressor might work on you. You want me to rob them blind, huh?" "So, it was a mission after all." "Yup, a super-secret mission, just for the two of us," Jean said as she scanned the area. "So, here's the plan. We are gonna start with something casual, like slot machines, then move to the table games. Don't always go for the win, they'll get suspicious. Lose some, win some, then try to act like you are a newbie. After winning a couple of big rounds, they will start to get suspicious. So in the next, put 90% of what you won on the line and lose. That's when the main game will begin. Let me guess. Losing that big round will help us diffuse their suspicions of us robbing them," I added, and Jean nodded. "Then with the remaining 10%, I'll win twice the amount I lost and act like why. I got lucky. Then get out of here with the money." "Exactly." Jean smirked. "I gotta say, I'm starting to like you more and more every second, Jean. This is so bad, but also so good," I commented. Jean's grin widened. "Of course. Plus, what kind of mentor would I be if I didn't give you life lessons, right?" "Right," I replied. Jean led the way to the cashier, her demeanor cool and confident. She approached the counter, slid a stack of bills forward, and with a casual smile said, "1,000 in chips, please." The cashier, a tired-looking woman in her 40s, didn't even blink. She quickly counted the money, handed Jean a neat stack of brightly colored chips, and nodded us along. She scooped them up, then turned back to me, her eyes glinting with excitement. "All right," she said telepathically, "let's get to work." "All right, first stop, slot machines," Jean said, keeping her voice low, though her words echoed in my mind. "Nobody pays too much attention to someone winning here because anyone barely wins here. Just look around these addicts, wasting their money on their luck." I scanned the rows of slot machines, each flashing and jingling in a bid to lure in players. The players were pulling levers or pressing buttons with varying degrees of excitement. Some were mindlessly feeding the machines, others hoping for that one jackpot to change their lives. We walked to an empty machine near the edge of the row, and I took the seat while she stood nearby, pretending to be just another onlooker. I inserted a couple of chips, pulled the lever, and the reels began to spin. "Remember," Jean's voice came into my head again, "win some, lose some. Make it believable." I gave her a slight nod, pulling the lever again as the images on the reels blurred. The machine came to a stop with a disappointing clatter, 2 cherries and a lemon. No win. Perfect. Over the next few minutes, I alternated between winning small payouts and losing just enough to stay under the radar. As I kept playing, I felt the thrill of the game, though it wasn't quite as intense knowing that everything was under control. The fun part was controlling the mechanism of the machine with my telekinetic power and pretending that it was pure luck that was bringing me luck. And as Jean said earlier, these mutant detectors don't work on me. After a few more rounds, I hit a decent win, 5 sevens across the middle row. The machine let out a triumphant jingle, and a small crowd gathered around, glancing at the amount displayed on the screen. I made sure to react like any lucky newbie would, pumping my fist and grinning at Jean. Nice. I said out loud, making sure my excitement was just enough to seem real but not over the top. Jean gave me a nod, subtly checking the room for anyone watching too closely. So far, so good. All right, that's enough for the slots, she said telepathically. Now let's head to the blackjack tables. Time to step up the game. I got up from the slot machine, cashing out my chips and pocketing them as casually as I could. Jean led the way, and I followed until we reached one where the stakes were moderate but not high enough to attract too much attention. A few players were already seated, their faces focused, trying to guess the dealer's next move. Jean gestured for me to take a seat while she stood nearby. I sat down, exchanged a few chips for a stack of betting tokens, and waited for the game to begin. The dealer, a middle-aged guy with a neat mustache, dealt out the first hand, and I played cautiously at first, winning a couple of hands but also losing a few. Just like Jean had instructed. My stack of chips fluctuated, enough to keep the game interesting but not so much to raise any red flags. After about 15 minutes, I hit my first big win. A blackjack right off the deal. The dealer gave me a nod as I scooped up my winnings, and I could feel the eyes of the other players on me. I acted like a newbie who didn't expect to win, giving an awkward laugh and shrugging my shoulders. Guess I'm on a roll, I muttered, stacking my chips neatly in front of me. Jean's voice slid into my thoughts again. Perfect. Now lose a big one. I glanced at my stack, picking up a sizable portion of my winnings and placing them on the table for the next hand. The cards were dealt, and I played it poorly on purpose, hitting when I should have stayed. The dealer won the hand, wiping out a good chunk of my chips. Damn, I said, shaking my head. I knew I should have stayed. The other players gave sympathetic nods, not suspecting a thing. I could see the dealer glance at me with a look of mild amusement, clearly thinking I was just another amateur gambler who got too greedy. Jean, meanwhile, was casually leaning against the nearby wall, arms crossed and looking completely at ease. But I knew better. She was focused, watching every move, scanning the room for any signs that we were being watched too closely. The next few hands went smoothly. I won a couple more, but nothing too big. Then, it was time for the final move. All right. Jean's voice was calm but firm in my head. This is it. Put 90% of your remaining chips on the table and lose. After that, one more game with a big win and we are out of here. I met her gaze, giving a slight nod before turning back to the table. My heart was racing as I pulled my stack of chips into a larger pile. Here goes. I played the hand as badly as possible without making it obvious. Sure enough, I lost, and the dealer raked in the chips. I let out a frustrated sigh, slumping in my chair a little, playing the part of the disappointed gambler. Well, there goes that, I muttered, tossing the few remaining chips I had left into the center of the table. The next hand began, and I stayed focused. This was the crucial moment. If I won now, I'd walk out of here with double what I came in with. The cards were dealt, and I played it carefully this time, just like any gambler trying to recoup their losses would. The other players were watching, eyes flicking between my cards and the dealer's, curious to see if I'd make a comeback. I did. Blackjack again. I let out a whoop of surprise, grinning like an idiot. No way. I can't believe it. The dealer smiled politely, pushing my winnings toward me. The other players gave me congratulatory nods, and I could feel the tension ease around the table. I was just another lucky gambler who hit a streak. All right, that's enough for me, I said, getting up from the table and gathering my chips. Better quit while I'm ahead. I could feel Jean's approval through our telepathic connection as we made our way toward the cash-out counter. I handed over the chips, and the clerk counted them out, handing me a neat stack of bills. I pocketed the cash, glancing at Jean. Time to go, she said, a satisfied smirk on her face. We walked out of the casino, the cool winter air hitting us as soon as we stepped outside. I took a deep breath, the adrenaline still pumping through my veins. Jean walked beside me, her pace steady and calm, as if we hadn't just pulled off a perfect heist. "So how do you feel?" she asked, glancing at me. I grinned. "Like I just robbed a casino. We made freaking 80 grand. She chuckled. "Technically, you did. But hey, it was for a good cause." I raised an eyebrow. "And what cause is that exactly?" She gave me a sideways look, her eyes glinting with mischief. "Getting you some pocket money. And well, teaching you a valuable life skill." I couldn't help but laugh. "You're something else, Jean. Glad you're catching on," she said, her smile widening. "Now, let's get out of here before they figure out what just happened." After leaving the casino, Jean and I were still excited about our successful heist and decided to find a nearby cafe for lunch. We were pretty hungry. We entered a local cafe. The smells of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. It's been way too long since I had some expensive coffee. We chose a corner booth, away from the main crowd, and sat down comfortably. Jean leaned back in her chair, smiling happily. Everything went really well. Maybe a little too well. I chuckled, glancing around to ensure we weren't being followed. Yeah, I guess our luck held up today. The waitress came by to take our orders, and we both ordered sandwiches and coffee. Jean added an extra chocolate cake. As she left to get our drinks, Jean leaned forward with a serious expression. "You did well back there. Not many people could pull off what you did, especially on their first real mission." "Thanks," I replied, feeling a rush of pride at her compliment. "I owe a lot of it to your guidance and those telepathic nudges." Jean waved it off modestly. "It's all about timing and keeping a cool head. You did both." Our food arrived soon after, and we ate in comfortable silence for a while, both lost in our thoughts. It was surreal, sitting here like any other pair of friends after what we'd just done. "So what's next?" I finally asked, breaking the quiet. Jean took a sip of her coffee, considering. "Next? We lay low for a bit, let things cool down. Casinos don't like being robbed, even if they don't know who did it yet." I nodded, taking a bite of my sandwich. "Makes sense. Lay low and enjoy the spoils." "Exactly," she agreed with a grin. "And maybe start planning our next adventure. Can't let you get rusty, can we?" "Definitely not," I replied with a smirk. "I'm hooked now, ready for whatever comes next." After finishing our meal, we paid with some of our newfound cash, left a generous tip, and left the cafe. Outside, Jean glanced at her phone. "Looks like we've got some time to kill. Want to walk around the mall? It's just down the street." I shrugged, feeling relaxed after our little heist. "Sure, why not?" The mall wasn't far from the cafe, and as we walked over, the streets were bustling with last-minute shoppers. The festive decorations, twinkling lights, fake snow, and oversized candy canes gave the whole area a cozy holiday feel. When we entered the mall, it was like stepping into a whirlwind of Christmas chaos. Families were darting in and out of stores, people were struggling with armfuls of shopping bags, and the air was filled with the sound of cheerful holiday music. Jean smiled, glancing around at the holiday buzz. 3 days left until Christmas, and people are still scrambling. I smirked. "You're one to talk. We're about to join them." She laughed. "Fair enough. Let's grab some gifts while we're here. You know, for the team." I paused. "You mean you forgot to get gifts too, huh?" Jean gave me a playful shove. "You caught me. But hey, better late than never." We strolled through the mall, scanning store windows for inspiration. First stop, a high-end electronics store. Jean's eyes lit up as we passed a display of sleek gadgets. "I'm thinking something techie for Hank," she said, stopping to inspect a set of noise-canceling headphones. "He's always tinkering with machines or reading in that lab of his. Might as well make it easier for him to block out all the distractions." "Good choice," I agreed, picking up a box and nodding toward the checkout counter. "What about Scott?" Jean raised an eyebrow. "Scott's easy. I'll get him some new aviators. His sunglasses always seem to get broken or lost during missions. Can't go wrong with the classics," I said, as we left the store with our first round of gifts. Next, we wandered into a bookstore. Jean browsed the shelves with a thoughtful look on her face. "What do you think Logan would want?" I stifled a laugh. "Whiskey and cigars?" Jean rolled her eyes and shook her head. "Be serious. It has to be something he would actually appreciate." I sighed. Okay, In all seriousness, how about engine oil for his bike? Or a toolkit? Ooh, good ideas, she agreed. Logan loves to fix things, and his motorcycle is his pride and joy. A bottle of oil and a new wrench should put a big smile on his face. I was joking actually, I admitted. Let's get some limited edition cigars. He'll be in heaven. And so before we knew it, we bought enough gifts for everyone. But the fun fact, how the hell do we carry them back to the academy? Then when the professor asks how we got so much money, what do we say? We gambled? We might have bought a little too much, huh? Jean asked, looking at all our shopping bags. Maybe, I agreed with a chuckle. But it's worth it, right? Nothing like buying gifts for your friends and family to show you care. So, who's gonna take the blame for gambling? Jean asked. That would be me, I said. You had nothing to do with it, just being the moral support. Besides, considering I'm a clone, I can always use that clone card to get out of trouble, right? Jean laughed. Thanks for taking the bullet for me. But let's not say anything if he doesn't ask. We both laughed together and then hired a taxi to drive us to the academy. However, who would have thought that our fun day would be ruined by a freaking rhino? As the taxi turned a corner, the driver was mid-sentence, telling a story about the holiday traffic when we heard a deafening roar and the unmistakable sound of concrete shattering. The ground shook violently, and before I could react, Jean's hand instinctively shot out, grabbing my arm. What the hell was that? The driver blurted out, slamming on the brakes. I looked out the window just in time to see the hulking figure of Rhino, barreling through the street like an unstoppable wrecking ball. Cars and pedestrians scattered in every direction, trying to avoid the chaos as he plowed forward. His horn-tipped helmet gleamed under the city lights, and his massive frame sent cars flying like toys. And then, to our horror, he made a beeline straight for us. Move! I yelled at the driver, but it was too late. The taxi jerked violently as Rhino's path of destruction came hurtling toward us. I was ready to free that bastard on the spot. Jean's eyes flared with telekinetic energy, but before she could act, a streak of white and black shot past our car, fast as lightning. A web stretched taut in front of Rhino, and a figure swung through the air, flipping gracefully above the chaos. It was Ghost Spider. There's no doubt about it. With perfect timing, she snagged Rhino with another web, pulling herself towards him in one swift motion. She kicked off a nearby building, spinning around in midair as she used the force of her momentum to slam into Rhino's back. He staggered but didn't stop. Get out of here! Ghost Spider shouted. She was trying to slow Rhino down, but the guy was a tank on legs, barely fazed by her assault. Our driver, panicking, floored the gas pedal and swerved to avoid the debris. Jean and I braced ourselves as we sped through the chaos. Behind us, Ghost Spider kept dodging Rhino's wild charges, her acrobatic flips and web swinging the only thing keeping her out of his deadly reach. Jean turned to me, her expression serious. We need to help her. Before she could finish speaking, I covered my body with ice. This should be enough to hide my identity. I opened the door and jumped out, creating an ice block under my feet. I glided forward while continuously freezing the moisture in the air. I'll take care of it. I glided forward where Ghost Spider and Rhino were fighting. She was barely dodging that armored freak, and her webs weren't that effective. I got some new upgrades since our last fight, Bug, Rhino said with a large grin as he slammed his metal fists together, creating a massive shockwave that threw back everything around them. Ghost Spider flipped up in midair and threw multiple web bombs, trying to pin down his legs to the ground. Arg. He ripped through the web easily. This suit is specially made to squash you. He leaped forward, tackling her at high speed. Crap. Ghost Spider shouted as she tried to dodge his tackle, but she wasn't fast enough. But, hey, I'm fast enough. I froze the moisture around Rhino instantly. That metal freak froze in midair within a second and fell to the ground with a loud crash. He tried to move, but his legs and arms were frozen to the ground. Ghost Spider landed on the road and rushed to me. Thanks for the backup. This guy is a pain in the ass. I glanced around. There were too many people around, the cops, reporters. Need to get out of here. No problem. You should be careful next time. With that, I glided out of that area. I went into an alley and jumped over to the other side, after turning back to my human form. Phew. That was close. Jean was already waiting on the other end with the cab. Let's get out of here. She gestured with her head, and I nodded, jumping into the back seat. Mutant Academy. After distributing the gifts to everyone, the professor called us to his office and told us that gambling wasn't a good thing to do, then praised me for helping Ghost Spider stop Rhino in time, so it kinda took some heat off our back. I was ready to take the blame for gambling, but he didn't press much about it and let us go with a sigh. That was easy. He was in a good mood, Jean said as we walked out of his office. I nodded. We just got lucky. So how about we divide the cash? Jean smiled. You can keep it. I got what I wanted. Thanks for today. What she wanted. I stared at her in shock. Jean, are you sure? This is a lot of money. She shook her head. It's fine. Enjoy your first earn. Besides, I still have some cash left from the last time. It's all good. Wow. Thanks, Jean. I couldn't believe my ears. She was really giving me her cut. Jean giggled. Don't mention it. It was a fun day. Well, I'm gonna take a nap. See ya. She left the hallway and started climbing upstairs. I went to my room and took out the remaining cash. I still have around 70 grand left after lunch and shopping. Now, should I just save it or maybe open a bank account? Yeah, a bank account seems like a good idea. So, after freshening up, I decided to open an account on my new phone. Yup. I bought a new phone, not too high-end, just enough to handle regular tasks without any hitch. It took an hour or so to fill out the details and identity verification. The Face ID that the professor made for me was too good. Anyway, now, all I have to do is go to their branch and deposit the cash. There was also an option where the bank sends an employee home to take the cash and finalize some documents, but it's better if I go there and do it myself. I'll go tomorrow. I opened the news page and there it was. Rhino apprehended after rampage, thanks to quick intervention by Ghost Spider and a mysterious ice-wielding hero. Mysterious ice-wielding hero, huh? Well, luckily my face was covered, so no need to worry. As for cameras and all that surveillance shit S.H.I.E.L.D. does, I'm pretty sure they already know about me by now. Everything is good as long as they don't disturb my peaceful life. 3 days passed like a breeze. Today is Christmas and it was supposed to be a happy day. Well, there were some problems in Siberia, so most of the X-Men left yesterday. Jean also went with them. I wanted to spend some time with her, but it is what it is. There were only a few of us in the academy. So, we had a little party. Of course, everyone got something for me since they knew I didn't have any experience with holidays since I'm a clone. I should say orphan in this case. So yeah, everyone got me some presents. It was snowing hard outside, and now I was sitting near the window, looking out. From my room, I can see the street lamps. There were very few people walking around due to the snowfall. So it was basically me, drinking a cup of hot chocolate, staring out the window, and mindlessly thinking about random stuff. I need a goal. Back in my past life, my only goal was to fight, earn money, and survive at any cost. But in this world, I was just thrown into it without any goal. Now that I think about it, it isn't that bad, right? After mastering a couple of more mutations, I can just leave this place and try to live a normal life, away from all troubles. Maybe, help out the heroes when they are dying or whatever. I almost forgot. The New York invasion is yet to occur. I gotta do something to prevent civilian deaths, or should I just run away? Nah. Let's mess up those machines, and maybe if I'm lucky, I'll be able to absorb some more power from the heroes. I wonder if my power would work on Thor or Loki. Even my guesses are getting crazy at this point. I smiled while continuing to gaze at the snow, thinking of things. 1 year later, I've mastered ice mutation to its limit. Now, I can finally walk in the air without any effort at all. I also taught Bobby this technique. He was a quick learner, but not faster than me. It took me around 2 more months to master that power, and he took 2 months and a week. There is no need for any meditation anymore. Next was Psylocke's power. Let's just say, I'm deadly at a close combat and I can get into others' mind. Yeah. Those dreams or nightmares are now under my complete control. Now I can go to Cass. Ahem. I'll use this power responsibly and only use it for my purse. To help others in need. Yeah, that's it. That's what I was going to say. As for the third mutation, it was Kitty's phasing power. That shit is good. Passing through walls is dope. I don't think I have to explain how awesome her mutation is, right? Moving on. Jean and I are kinda dating. Well, at least I call it dating. Over the year, we went out on multiple outings. It's just that, neither of us asked each other formally, and everyone calls it friendly hangouts. Friendly hangouts. Next was the matter of moving out of the academy and starting my own life. I mean, I can't just stay there forever without having a place of my own, right? I made enough for my investment over the year to buy a new house, and with my power, I can earn enough through other means. Nothing illegal or anything. Just beat up the bad guys and take their money. Take down big mafias or gangs. Take their money and cars, and sell them on the black market. Like that. Right now, I'm sitting in the canteen area, sipping on a slushie. I heard you are leaving this Sunday. A familiar voice came from behind. It was Jean's voice. I turned around, and there she was, leaning against the doorframe with her arms crossed, a playful smirk on her face. Yeah, I replied, putting the slushie down. It's time. Jean walked over and sat across from me, her eyes locking onto mine. It feels weird. I mean, you've been here for over a year. Feels like you're part of the furniture now. I laughed softly, trying to ignore the weird feeling growing in my chest. Part of the furniture? Nice to know I blend in so well. She rolled her eyes. You know what I mean. The team's gonna miss you. I'm gonna miss you. That last part hit differently. I leaned back in my chair, watching her carefully. You can always visit. It's not like I'm going off the grid. And, what about our friendly hangouts? She smirked at that, then her face turned serious. You know what I mean. This past year. It's been good. There was a weight to her words. We danced around this for months now, but with me leaving, it felt like the clock was ticking down. I wasn't sure how to handle it. You could come with me, I offered, half joking, half serious. Jean blinked in surprise, and then a soft laugh escaped her. Tempting, but you know I can't. The X-Men need me here, and there's always something going on. I shrugged. There's always going to be something going on. Doesn't mean you have to be the one solving every crisis. Maybe. She paused, her gaze softening. But that's not really the point, is it? You're leaving to find your own way, and I have mine here. It made sense, but it still sucked. We sat there in silence for a moment, both of us feeling the unspoken things hanging between us. Ice mastery. It was early morning, just after sunrise. The grounds of the academy were quiet, still covered in a layer of frost from the previous night. I stood in the middle of the field, hands raised, feeling the raw energy of the ice mutation course through me. The cold didn't bother me anymore, not that it ever did since absorbing the ability, but now I had full control. You're getting better, Jean said, standing off to the side, bundled up in a jacket. Her breath fogged up in the cold air. Better. I repeated with a smirk. I think I've moved past better. Watch this. I focused, extending my hand out in front of me. The air chilled instantly, and within seconds, ice formed beneath my feet, spreading outward in a perfect circle. With a small push, I lifted off the ground, gliding on a trail of ice like it was second nature. Jean watched, her arms crossed, eyebrows raised in approval. Okay, show off. What else can you do? She teased. I grinned, pushing off from the ice and launching myself higher into the air, creating a platform beneath me. Walking in the air, like some sort of frozen acrobat, I twisted and turned, forming bridges of ice in midair. It felt incredible, the power at my fingertips. But the real test came when I stopped showing off. All right, enough playing around, Jean called out. Can you maintain that control in battle? I dropped down, landing lightly in the snow. I can handle anything that comes my way. She smiled. Good. Because I want to see how fast you can form defensive structures when you're under pressure. You need to be able to think on your feet, not just when it's a quiet morning like this. With a simple gesture of her hand, I suddenly felt the pressure. Telekinetic force, courtesy of Jean's mind, pushed against me. It wasn't overwhelming, but it wasn't meant to be easy either. My hand shot up instinctively, and a thick wall of ice formed in front of me just in time to stop her invisible attack. But I didn't stop there. I knew Jean, and I knew she wasn't done. I summoned another wall behind me, then to my left and right. The ice wrapped around me in a perfect sphere. You can't just block, she shouted from outside the dome. You need to move, attack, and defend all at once. Her telekinetic force pressed harder against the dome, cracking it. I could feel the strain as I pushed more energy into the ice, thickening it and reinforcing it. Then I grinned, realizing what I had to do. I let the dome shatter, and as it did, I created a new trail of ice, launching myself out of the danger zone and forming a jagged spear-like structure of ice in midair. In one fluid motion, I sent it hurtling toward Jean, careful not to aim too close. She blocked it easily with a telekinetic shield, of course, but the look on her face told me she was impressed. "Not bad," she said with a smirk. "I aim to please," I replied, landing smoothly back on the ground. It took around 3 months or so to fight using ice power. I can now freely manipulate ice without any focus. It's just like breathing, and besides fighting, I learned a few other tricks, like changing my body into water or snow dust for a few minutes. However, my most powerful achievement was something deadly. It's like a trump card. I call it Beyond Zero. It's an ice zone. That's all I can say for now. Psychic mastery. If there was one power that really messed with my head, it was Psylocke's psychic abilities. Controlling minds, manipulating thoughts, it was next-level stuff. But over time, I had learned to navigate the complexities of the mental plane. It wasn't easy, and Jean had been instrumental in helping me. We were in the danger room, the space set up to simulate various battle scenarios. This time, though, it wasn't about combat. It was about control. "Focus on the energy," Jean instructed, standing across from me, her voice calm but firm. "You need to reach into the mind without overwhelming it. It's not about brute force." I closed my eyes, reaching out with my mind, feeling for the invisible threads of thought that connected us. Slowly, I felt Jean's presence, like a gentle breeze against my skin. But instead of pushing in, I held back, hovering just at the edge of her consciousness. "Good," she said, her voice echoing in my head now. "Now, I want you to visualize a door. A small one, something simple." I did as she asked. In my mind's eye, a door appeared, plain wooden, unassuming. "Now open it, but carefully," she continued. "You don't want to force your way in. Just look around." I reached for the handle, turning it gently. As the door creaked open, I could feel a rush of thoughts, memories, and emotions. It was overwhelming at first, like standing in the middle of a crowded room. But I focused, filtering through the noise, picking out individual memories. Some were old, Jean's childhood, which was kinda hazy, as if a barrier was surrounding that part of her memories, then her first days at the academy. Others were more recent, our training sessions, and conversations with the other X-Men. Then, there were those memories of the time we spent together over the past months. And the way her face lights up when she smiles, the way her hair feels between my fingers, the sound of her laugh. Each thought, each image, so vivid and clear. I could see it all, feel everything. The funny yet good one was the scene where Jean was running around her room, trying to figure out which dress to wear for the movie night. But the most surprising memory of all was my own face reflected back at me through her eyes. Looking back at the memories, the smile on my lips grew bigger with each second. It was like opening up an entirely new world, one where nothing was hidden or forgotten. "Stop staring at those parts." Jean's voice came to my mind as she appeared beside me and quickly hid those memories. "Ah, is that why you were 40 minutes late?" I smirked. "Shut up. Besides, that movie was a crap," she complained. "Wait. Who chose that movie?" "Right, you. How would I know that they botched such a good series?" "I did tell you," I said, and received a mental knock on my head. This was supposed to be about control and focus. So, concentrate on that. And that part is off limits from now on. Oh, and don't try to find those memories of me changing clothes or dancing in the shower unless you don't love having that head over your shoulder, she said teasingly. "Heh. Dancing in the shower, huh? Focus." "Yes, ma'am." But before I could do so, Jean vanished, leaving me standing there with only a mental reminder: stay out of those parts. It wasn't that easy, especially knowing what was in there. But I could tell I was improving. After a while, I pulled back, closing the door behind me. When I opened my eyes, Jean was watching me with a proud smile. "You did well. It's all about subtlety. The stronger your control, the more you'll be able to use this in real combat situations." I nodded, wiping the sweat from my brow. "It's intense. I'm not used to this kind of mental strain." She smiled. You'll get there. Just remember, it's not about domination. It's about understanding. This power took around 5 months to master. Although using psionic blasts and swords was kinda easy, the memory manipulation and reading thoughts in that area was too hard. For the first 2 months, the voices were too overwhelming, like a noisy crowd speaking all at once, and those psychic dreams. The damn nightmares I've had over the nights. Anyway, after the professor taught me to filter the voices, I got better. Now, everything is normal and I can read others' minds. Yay. Phasing mastery. Kitty's phasing ability was a game changer. It wasn't flashy like ice or psychic powers, but it was versatile. Being able to walk through walls, escape traps, or avoid attacks, it opened up a whole new world of possibilities. Alright, it's simple, Jean had explained during one of our sessions. You just relax, let go, and let yourself pass through. Don't overthink it. We were in the academy's lower levels, standing in front of a solid metal wall. Easy for you to say, I muttered, eyeing the wall. You've had your power for years. It must have taken a long time to learn your telekinesis and mind-reading skill, right? She grinned. Yeah, but you are a fast learner than anyone here. You can do it. Now just phase through. I took a deep breath, focused, and walked toward the wall. For a second, I felt the resistance, like pushing through thick air. But then, my body slipped through, and I emerged on the other side. See? Jean called out, her voice muffled by the wall between us. Told you it was easy. I phased back through, shaking my head. Still freaky, though. She laughed. You'll get used to it. Just wait until you try it in combat. It's a lifesaver. Over the next few months, I practiced phasing in every possible scenario, escaping traps in the danger room, dodging attacks during sparring sessions, even sneaking into places I wasn't supposed to be. It became second nature. Thanks to that, I was able to copy almost everyone's power. It's stable for now with no side effects so far. But I can't use them all recklessly. I gotta be careful in this matter. Anyway, I'm training those powers one at a time. I was thinking of checking out the property, before finalizing the deal and all. So wanna go out with me? I offered. Maybe grab some dinner on the way. As friends. Jean narrowed her eyes. I'm pretty sure she was trying to read my mind, but I'm immune to mind reading. Hee hee. She always complains about how she doesn't know what I'm thinking and how she feels lost during our conversation. It's fun to watch Jean like that. She always reads everyone's mind without their permission. Now, she can't do that to me. It feels good. How about we call it a date today? I asked while maintaining my composure. Okay, Jean smiled. Sounds like fun. What time do you want to go? Wait. Okay. I was expecting some kind of reaction from you. Like, oh my god, a real date? What took you so long? Or, I don't know. Something like that, I said while making a funny face. And let you make fun of me later? Jean said as she stood up with a smirk. Yeah. Go on, give me a reaction or something. I'm waiting, I urged. Jean laughed as she shook her head and started walking toward the door. Hey, I'm serious. I called after her. You're not gonna get away with this, Jean. She paused and glanced back at me over her shoulder, her green eyes sparkling with amusement. And what are you gonna do about it, Aron? Well, maybe put a big bell pepper in your burger for starters, I said with a straight face. Ouch. She raised an eyebrow, clearly enjoying the little banter. That's just cruel. I walked toward her, grinning. You better watch your back, Miss Gray. I'm not gonna go easy on you. Jean turned to face me fully, a challenging look in her eyes. Bring it on, Aron. I dare you. We stared at each other for a long moment, neither of us willing to back down. It was like a silent standoff, each of us trying to gauge the other's resolve. I really should stop spending time with Jubilee and Kitty, I said as I scratched the back of my head. Their habit of pranking people was starting to rub off on me. Jean chuckled. You know they will prank you forever if you leave the gang, right? They might go to your new house and annoy you. Stealing newspapers, pressing the doorbell and running away, and so on. Not to mention, Kitty can walk through walls. She might take some embarrassing pictures of you and spread them all over the academy. Now, that's a good idea. I might just put her up to this and get some nice pics of you. A teasing smirk appeared on her face. You wouldn't do that, I said, half joking, half serious. Try me, Jean replied with a mischievous grin. Fine, I sighed, raising my hands in defeat. I give up. I'll never prank you again. Promise. Good choice. She patted me on the shoulder. Now, about you close that recorder in your pocket? Tiss. I was planning on recording her reaction and pranking her later. Damn it. How did she figure it out? Wait. I only told Jubilee about it. So she must have read Jubilee's mind and got to know about my plan. Man. She is so smart. I closed the recorder. Nice try though. Jean patted my shoulder again before asking, so when are we going? 3 p.m., I replied as she started walking away. See you at the gate. With that, she left me alone in the canteen area with my thoughts. I couldn't help but smile as I watched her leave. Jean and I have been friends for a long time now, but this is the first time I asked her out on a date. Well, we have gone out a few times, but as I've already said, we never called it a date back then. So, I was kinda expecting a big reaction from her. The thought brought me back to reality, and I realized that I was getting dragged into Jubilee and Kitty's pace and thinking like them. I'm not the kind of guy who plays pranks on people. Crap. Who am I kidding? I pranked so many students and even teachers. Sigh. Never mind, let's focus on the date. At 2:55 p.m., I stood by the gate, nervously checking the time. I wasn't sure why I felt so jittery. It wasn't like this was our first time hanging out. But then again, this time, it was different. I kept adjusting my shirt, wondering if I should have gone with something a little more. I don't know, formal? Nah. Jean's seen me at my best and worst, so dressing up too much might come off as trying too hard. Relax, Aron. It's just Jean, I muttered to myself, leaning against the gate. Yum. What are you doing? It's Jubilee. Oh no, Jubilee, Kitty, and wait. Is that Rogue? I've only seen her a couple of times in a year. She often stays indoors, probably because of her powers. I haven't had the chance to talk to her much, maybe twice or thrice, that's it. Anyway, they are all here, and the three of them have their arms crossed as they look at me. You look nervous, Jubilee said as she walked out of the gate and took a quick look around before turning back to me. What makes you think that? I asked, trying my best to sound normal. Aron, you look like a mess. And trust me, I've seen you at your worst. So what's wrong? She asked, studying me with those big brown eyes of hers. No, you haven't. I was about to say that, but stopped myself just in time. Jubilee has a habit of poking her nose into everything. I mean, literally everything. No secrets are safe from her, especially if it's juicy gossip. And what could be more juicy than this? Me, going on a date with a girl who is considered one of the most beautiful women at Xavier School with a fan club. Not to mention that Scott had also been after her for quite a while now. To make things worse, Jubilee had her suspicions for quite some time, keeping an eye on us for a perfect moment to jump and expose us. Nothing worth mentioning. By the way, why are you here again? You following me or something like that? I asked her, trying to change the subject. You know that's exactly what we are doing, right? Kitty replied, smirking. Now spill it. We are not going to leave until you do. Wait. I can't tell them that I'm going to check out my new house. If they learn about it, then I can kiss goodbye to my peaceful life. Not to mention the fact that they don't even know that I'm moving out of the academy. Sigh. Should I just manipulate their mind and get them out of here? Or, wait. What if I make a distraction and run? Nah. That won't work. They will figure it out soon and follow me. Sigh. Guess I have to use the most basic trick in the book. Say, girls, didn't you want that new imported chocolate? Tell you what, go away and leave me alone and I'll buy you all 2 boxes each, I said with a grin. Whoa. Seriously? Jubilee's eyes sparkled as she looked at me in surprise. I thought you were going to use your usual tricks and run away. Yeah, she fell for it. She is too simple. I'm not that kind of person. I scratched the back of my head, trying to look innocent. So how about it? 2 boxes each and I'll buy you dinner on the weekend. Deal. Deal. All 3 replied in unison. Okay, but you can't tell anyone about this, alright? I warned. And don't follow me again. Alright. The trio replied once again in unison. See ya. Jubilee waved and walked away, followed by Rogue and Kitty. Phew. That was close. I turned around and leaned against the gate. Although they are all adults, I don't know why they behave like that. It probably got to do with their mutation or past. Well, at least they are out of my hair now. Soon Jean arrived, wearing a beautiful yellow dress and a white coat that complemented her fiery red hair. She smiled as she approached me. "You look great," I complimented, smiling. "Thanks," she replied with a faint blush on her cheeks. "You don't look so bad yourself. Come on, let's get out of here before those three come back," I said as I offered her my arm. "Who?" Jean asked, raising an eyebrow. "Jubilee, Kitty, and Rogue," I replied as we started walking toward the gate. "Oh? Did something happen?" she asked as we passed through the gate and headed toward the main road. "Let's just say that I made a deal with them." I scratched the back of my head with a wry smile. Jean nodded. "I see. Well, I guess I don't need to know the details." "Yeah," I replied before changing the subject. The drive to the new house was quieter than I expected. Jean sat next to me, gazing out the window, her fingers occasionally brushing against the door handle. I glanced at her now and then, but she seemed lost in her thoughts. No mind games this time, just simple silence. "So what's this place like?" Jean finally asked, breaking the quiet. "It's got a nice view. Big, open space." "You'll see," I said, trying to sound casual. Jean nodded but didn't say much, her eyes returning to the landscape passing by. I couldn't help but sneak a glance at her again. The way the light from the setting sun caught her hair, making it glow a brilliant red, had me feeling like a complete fool for waiting so long to ask her out. Why hadn't I done this earlier? Why was I so scared? I guess it was the fear of ruining what we already had, the easygoing friendship that made everything between us feel so natural. The cab stopped in front of the new house. It was a bit away from the city life. After paying, we got out. "This is it," I said, stopping in front of the gate. The property wasn't too big, but it was cozy, a two-story house with large windows and a small garden out front. Jean looked around, taking it all in. "It's beautiful," she said with a smile. "It's peaceful. I can see why you'd want to move out here." I nodded, feeling a sense of pride. I never owned a house before in my past life. So, this was something. I don't know. New. As soon as we entered the property, I took out the keys and opened the lock on the front door. The inside of the house was still mostly empty, just the basics: a couch, a table, a few chairs. I'd ordered some furniture, but it hadn't arrived yet. Jean stepped inside and wandered around, checking out the space. "Not bad," she said, admiring the high ceilings and the natural light flooding in through the windows. "It has potential." "Yeah, once I get everything set up, it'll feel more like home," I replied, leaning against the doorframe as I watched her explore. Jean made her way to the living room and sat down on the couch. "So, what's the plan for this place? Any grand renovations?" I shook my head. "Nah, nothing too crazy. Maybe just a few personal touches here and there. Might redo the kitchen. Who knows? Time will tell. For now, I just need the right number of cushions and a comfy bed to spend the nights in. The rest can wait until I figure out what I want to do with the place." She nodded, crossing her legs as she leaned back. Her green eyes met mine, and there was a soft smile on her lips. "So, were you serious when you said you wanted me to move in with you? I wasn't sure if you meant it or if you were just joking." "Of course, I was serious," I said without hesitation. "I mean, yeah, it's kind of sudden, but, well, maybe I was kinda hasty. I mean, I don't have a proper job or income other than a few investments I made. Not to mention, I barely have anything left in my bank account after buying this place." "You are broke," she smirked. "Yup." I gave her a thumbs up for guessing the obvious fact. "And you must be the first man to tell a girl that he's broke and all with an honest smile," she chuckled. "There's nothing to hide from you. Besides, once I get a job and withdraw the profits, everything will fall into place," I said confidently. Jean laughed, shaking her head. "You really are something else. You know that, right? Always so positive and confident. That's a good thing, I suppose." "So?" Jean glanced toward the empty doorway and chewed on her bottom lip, seeming like she was hesitating. "Let's say you get back on your feet, and you do end up getting a proper job and income. You know, a stable life." "Yeah." I raised an eyebrow, encouraging her to go on. She met my gaze again, her face softening. Do you still mean it? Do you still want me to move in with you? Sure, I answered instantly, grinning. But what was that you said about following your road and all? I teased. Because you don't know about my past, and I'm unstable. My powers are different from what you know about, and I interrupted her. Whoa, hold on, alright? One thing at a time. What happened in the past, well, it's past. Isn't that the point? Whatever it was, it's over now. And yeah, I know about your power. Heard it from the professor about the Phoenix Force and all. At this point, it's just another thing that I think is cool. Actually, scratch that. There's nothing about you that I don't find cool. Jean blushed at that, averting her eyes as she continued. It's dangerous. I might hurt you worse, kill you in my sleep or . Okay. Calm down, alright? Have you already forgotten my mutation? I think I can handle a situation that might arise between us, even the Phoenix or whatever. I can absorb power, remember, and… I might have absorbed your power, well copied to be precise, I said as I opened my palm, summoning bright flames swirling it into a vortex. Jean blinked, surprised, as she looked back at me. You are controlling the Phoenix flames? Yeah. I was keeping it a secret. Didn't want anyone to freak out or anything. And you don't have any voices in your head or anything like that, do you? She asked with a serious expression. I snuffed out the vortex and shook my head. Nope, no voices or anything. Everything is fine. Dang. Do you have any idea how long it took for me to control a tiny wisp of her flame and then gain her trust, and I am still barely able to keep her contained? And here you are, tossing it around like it's nothing, she said, throwing her hands up dramatically. I laughed and shrugged. What can I say, I'm awesome, I said smugly, puffing out my chest. Jean narrowed her eyes at me. We'll see about that, she said, before flopping back against the cushions and staring up at the ceiling. There was another moment of silence. Doesn't it sound like I'm taking advantage of you if I start living with you after you do all the hard work and I just sit on my butt? She finally asked, glancing at me, and I could see the concern written all over her face. So, does it even matter? I'm doing what I want to do, and what kind of man would I be if I didn't have enough to support my girl, I winked. Jean laughed, the sound reminding me of wind chimes, light and melodious. Your girl, huh? What? Don't tell me Scott got to you before me. I asked mockingly. Then in that case, let's forget it and just keep being friends. But you'd better not ruin it between us because it will be super awkward for me when you marry Scott. Shut up already, Jean said, shaking her head. I'm sick of his advances. I don't even like him that way. He's just a friend to me. It was my turn to smirk this time. And this one you like? I said, pointing at myself. Isn't he just a friend too? She stood up, walked up to me, and sat on my lap, wrapping her arms around my neck. Oh God. I never expected this to happen. Jean was on my lap, and it felt so good. Her chest was touching mine, and my heart was beating like a jackhammer. I didn't know where to place my hands. I looked at her pretty face, taking in her beauty. Jean must have noticed my tension, and she decided to take advantage of the situation. Do I like this one? She whispered, her face inches away from mine. Her lips were close to mine, and I found myself leaning forward, just an inch away. I was dazed. Is this real, or am I in a dream? I don't care. I moved my face closer. Our lips touched, and the sensation was electric. It was magical. It was so perfect. This was heaven. We were kissing slowly as Jean slowly opened her mouth, allowing me to take the lead. For a brief moment, I was shocked. But then, I moved in and deepened our kiss, hugging her. We stayed locked like that for a minute before Jean pulled away, resting her forehead against mine. We should have done this long ago, I breathed as we separated for a bit. Yeah, we should have, Jean whispered, giving me a flirty little grin. You taste like strawberry, I said before pecking her lips. Someone said, your first kiss tastes like lemon, she kissed back. First kiss. Really? Wasn't that second? Wait. Third. Now, I kissed her again softly, before pulling back. That makes it fourth. Seriously? You are actually counting, idiot. She kissed me again. Seems like you are starting to lose count. That makes it the sixth one. Count all you like. We were kissing passionately, and Jean was nibbling my lips, wanting for something else. Something deeper. But the damn phone ruined the moment. Well, crap. Who the heck was calling now? The loud ring was echoing in the otherwise silent space. I growled, letting the sound go on for another ring and another. Jean stood up and walked toward the window with a smile. I took out the phone, and it was from that agent. I guess he wants to ask me about finalizing the deal. Mother bastard. He just had to call right now. I picked up the call. I answered the phone, trying to hide the irritation in my voice. Yeah. Hey, it's Mike. Just wanted to confirm a few things about the deal. The real estate agent's voice came through the line. The guy sounds happy after ruining the mood. I glanced over at Jean, who had her back turned, looking out the window. She caught my eye and gave me a teasing smile, clearly still amused by our interrupted moment. Sure, Mike. Go ahead, I said, walking to the far side of the room to focus on the call. He went over some final details, paperwork, payment schedules, minor legalities I needed to sign off on. I nodded along, giving short responses, all the while my mind was drifting back to Jean. Got it, Mike. I'll send you the signed documents tomorrow morning, I said, eager to end the call. Great. Congrats again on the place, man. We'll finalize everything soon. Yeah, thanks, I replied before ending the call. I shoved my phone back into my pocket, cursing silently under my breath for letting such a small thing ruin the moment. I mean, he could have called tomorrow morning or something. Damn him. Jean turned around, crossing her arms with a knowing smirk. That agent's got impeccable timing, doesn't he? Perfect timing, really, I said sarcastically, walking back over to her. So where were we? She chuckled. Well, we could pick up where we left off, or how about we take a break from this place? Go out, catch a movie, grab some dinner. Jean suggested, raising an eyebrow. I looked her up and down, pretending to think about her proposal. She smacked my shoulder playfully. Hey, watch it. I'm considering. Idiot. All right, but no romantic movies. Those are boring, I said, rolling my eyes. Jean grinned. All right. No romance. Now let's get going before your agent calls again and ruins the moment, she said, grabbing my arm and dragging me out the door. We booked a cab and went straight to the theater. I'll buy a car later. The movie wasn't that great. It was some action flick with explosions and gunfire every other minute. But Jean seemed to enjoy the plot. So, it was a win for me. After the movie, we stopped at a diner near the theater. The waitress seated us, handed us each a menu, and disappeared to go refill our water. So, what are you getting? Jean asked while going through the menu. Burgers sound good, I replied casually. Jean smirked. You're so easy to please. Hey, I like the classics, I said, closing the menu and leaning back. Besides, burgers and fries after a movie? That's basically the perfect night. She rolled her eyes playfully, still studying her options. You're right, though. After that much action, something simple sounds perfect. She shut her menu and set it aside. Tisk, call me a hypocrite, but I'll probably get the same. Just don't judge me if I want extra cheese. I chuckled. Extra cheese it is, no judgment. Jean ordered a cheeseburger with fries, and I did the same, plus added Coke for the drink. Once the waitress left, Jean leaned back and glanced out the window at the busy street outside. Her fingers drummed lightly on the table, and for a moment, we sat there in a comfortable silence, just taking in the atmosphere. I can't believe we waited this long to do something like this, Jean said, her voice soft as she returned her gaze to me. I shrugged, leaning forward and resting my arms on the table. Timing's everything, I guess. We needed to figure things out first. Or at least, I needed to stop being scared. Her expression softened. Scared? I thought nothing ever fazed you. I smiled wryly. Yeah, I might act like I have it all together, but when it came to you, well, yeah, I was scared. I rubbed the back of my neck awkwardly. I mean, the stakes were high, right? I'm a clone and, well, you're a hot mess. She offered. I shook my head. No, you're amazing. But you've had a lot going on, and I didn't want to mess that up. So, maybe it's better that we waited. At least, until things settle down. Until we have a chance to see where this is going. Jean nodded. I suppose you're right. The waitress returned, setting our drinks down on the table, interrupting our moment of honesty. Jean absent-mindedly stirred her straw in her Coke, her gaze still fixed on me, as if waiting for me to say something else. I took a long sip from my drink and cleared my throat. But yeah, I guess I just didn't want to mess things up. Jean leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. I get that. I didn't exactly make it easy for you, did I? I laughed softly, shaking my head. You? Difficult? Never, I said, grinning. She narrowed her eyes playfully. Liar. So we ate while joking about everything and nothing. It felt so normal, just the two of us, as if everything else in our lives didn't matter. And it was nice, sitting there, chatting and laughing, just being with her. After we finished eating, I paid the bill and we decided to walk back to the academy. It wasn't that far, just around a 30-minute or so walk from the diner. The cool air felt good after sitting in the warm diner. The streets were still crowded with people, so we walked slowly, enjoying the night. But who would have thought that our awesome date would once again be interrupted by some bastards again? So, as we passed the busy streets, the narrow road that was supposed to be a shortcut suddenly grew darker. I mean, the streetlights were still up, yet everything became dark before my eyes as if someone blindfolded me. It was a nice ability. Blinding a person suddenly was a nice tactic. But with my ice control and psychic control, I don't even need my eyes to see. I quickly stretched out my control over the moisture around the area and found 3 humans closing in on us. What the hell? I said, trying to shake the feeling. I felt a strong grip on my arm and a familiar voice saying, "This way." It was Jean, but she sounded worried, panicked. Magneto's men. Run. Run. Why are we running? We can definitely take them on without any pressure. Heck, I'm confident enough to take them all alone. But why did she sound so afraid? Jean, wait. Why are they here? I asked, following her closely. They're probably here for me. Phoenix to be precise, Jean replied. Then isn't it better to take them down instead of running away? We can't let them report back to Magneto. They might have heard our conversation and know things about us. Now, what do you think would happen if Magneto learns about my existence? Jean sighed, looking around frantically. You don't understand. They're not just ordinary mutants. They are Omega level. That shadow armor guy is Senyaka. Dude's almost immortal and can absorb life energy. He just doesn't die. And that red-haired girl is Amelia Vought, Professor's ex. She can convert matter into vapor at will, including herself. With just a flick of her finger, she can vaporize oxygen around us. And mental attack doesn't work on her, not to mention she can teleport. As for the other guy, I've no idea. Must be a new guy. So run. Those are some OP powers. I mean, absorbing life force, snuffing out oxygen to kill your target, and teleportation, not to mention that other guy's ability to make others blind or maybe more. This is a perfect chance to get more powers. I grinned. Then we should fight, but I don't think they will give up that easily, right? Jean nodded. That's why we should run and get closer to the academy. Well, you go ahead. I'll keep them busy in the meantime. You have to reach the mansion fast, okay? Jean frowned. I can't leave you here. No, just trust me. Go. We can't allow them to catch you. But, you know what I can do. Have some faith in me. Just go. I pushed her away. Jean stared at me for a second before nodding. Okay. Please, be careful. I'll bring help. She decided to fly away. No worries. I turned around, slamming my palm on the road, creating an ice zone around the place. Oh my. A young man protecting his girlfriend. Amelia licked her lips with a sly smirk as her body began to turn to vapor. This is gonna be fun. The alleyway was suddenly filled with an ominous chill, as a thick frost spread from where my palm had slammed into the ground. Crystals of ice sprouted in jagged patterns, coating the walls and the road. The air around me turned cold, my breath visible as I stood up, watching Amelia Vought disappear into vapor. A sly smirk tugged at the corner of my lips. This would be fun. You think you can just fly away from me? Amelia's voice echoed in the dense fog, her words dripping with malice. I stretched my senses through the moisture in the air, tracking her presence. Sure, she could turn to vapor, but vapor is still moisture, and I had absolute control over it. With a flick of my wrist, I commanded the vapor in the air to condense and harden. A sudden gust of icy wind swirled around the alley, and Amelia's form struggled against the freezing grip I was tightening around her vaporized body. "Come on now," I taunted. "Let's see how well you do against a little cold." Amelia hissed, her vapor body shifting and dissipating in an attempt to escape, but I wasn't about to let her go that easily. I focused harder, freezing the moisture in the air at an even faster rate, causing her vapor to crystallize. While I was busy with Amelia, the ground beneath me trembled violently. Senyaka's whip-like tendrils, crackling with deadly life energy, shot from the darkness, aiming straight for my legs. I narrowly dodged one of the glowing whips but felt the heat of it as it grazed my side. "Not bad," I muttered, rolling to the side and throwing up a wall of ice between me and Senyaka. "But you're not fast enough." Senyaka growled in frustration, the energy from his tendrils blasting through the ice wall like it was nothing. His eyes glinted with something dark and predatory as he charged me, his whips lashing out with blinding speed. I ducked under one, then parried another with a shield of ice that shattered on impact. The guy was a walking battery of deadly energy, and I wasn't keen on letting him drain me dry. I slid backward, using the slick ice I'd laid down earlier to my advantage, creating more distance between us. "You're going to have to try harder than that," I called out, extending my arm and firing off a volley of sharp icicles straight toward him. He smirked, using his energy whips to bat most of them away. But I wasn't aiming for him directly. The ice shard struck the surrounding area, embedding into the ground and walls, creating a domain of sharp spikes and cold traps. With every step Senyaka took, the ice seemed to grow thicker, making it harder for him to maneuver. Meanwhile, Amelia was still struggling to fully reform. She'd lost her initial advantage, but I knew she wasn't done yet. Just as I expected, her vapor began swirling rapidly again, and I could feel the temperature around me changing. She was trying to vaporize the air around us, cutting off the oxygen. But two can play that game. I concentrated, controlling the moisture to thicken into an icy mist, lowering the temperature drastically. The vapor Amelia had created started to freeze again, crystallizing in mid-air as I drained the heat from it. Her form struggled to take shape, a frustrated shriek escaping her lips as I forced her vaporized body to solidify. "You like messing with the air, huh? Let's see how you like being frozen solid," I muttered, raising my hand as more ice formed around her, encasing her in a jagged prison of frost. "Not bad," came a voice from behind me. I spun around to see the third mutant, a tall man with dark, unreadable eyes. He hadn't attacked yet, but there was something eerie about the way he just stood there, his gaze locked onto mine. "And who the hell are you supposed to be?" I asked, not letting my guard down for a second. The man smirked. "Let's just say, you'll find out soon enough." Suddenly, everything went black. But this time, it wasn't just my sight. My hearing faded too. The sounds of the city, the faint wind, the hum of distant traffic. All of it vanished, leaving me in a world of oppressive silence. My sense of smell, taste, even touch, it was like someone had flipped a switch, plunging me into complete sensory deprivation. He wasn't just blinding me anymore, he was stripping away everything. My connection to the world felt severed, leaving me floating in a void. Yet, a large grin formed on my face. I want this power. It's time to wrap things up. Taking a deep breath, I unleashed my final move that came with Ice Mutation. Beyond Zero. The pinnacle of my Ice Mutation, something I hadn't fully unleashed until now. Taking a deep breath, I allowed myself to dissolve into the frost. My body became mist, an ethereal snowstorm, invisible yet everywhere. The alleyway erupted with a sudden burst of cold, colder than the Arctic, colder than anything that had ever existed on Earth. The air itself cracked under the pressure of the extreme chill, turning every breath the three mutants took into a frozen gasp. The snowstorm raged, filling the space around us, and within it, I was everywhere at once, a ghost in the freezing wind. I sensed Senyaka, his tendrils flailing wildly, unable to latch onto anything solid. His life force draining abilities were useless now, there was no living thing to grab hold of. He swung his whips in panic, but they hit nothing but swirling ice and snow. Amelia, trapped in her vapor form, struggled to hold herself together. Her vapor was freezing faster than she could dissipate it. I saw her try to reform, her body flickering in and out of visibility, but it was too late. The cold seeped into her, turning her vapor into solid ice, and locking her movement in a frozen crystal. And the third guy, The one who had stripped away my senses? I felt him too. His power was impressive, I had to give him that. But in this storm, it was useless. I could feel his fear as the icy winds whipped around him, his mind faltering as the oppressive cold gnawed at his body. His abilities flickered, and my senses started to return. Bit by bit, I reclaimed my sight, my hearing, and my connection to the world around me. The blizzard swirled tighter, focusing on my three enemies. I reformed slowly from the snow, emerging out of the storm, my breath visible in the icy air. My hand stretched out toward Senyaka first. His whips fell to the ground as the life energy in them dissipated. He tried to run away, but where would he run? I froze him solid. Not so immortal now, huh? I whispered. His body stiffened, frost creeping up his skin. But I didn't kill him. I wasn't here for that. With a tight grip on his throat, I absorbed his power, feeling the life-draining energy flow into me. Unlike the time when I just copied others' power or absorbed a tiny amount, making it mine, I decided to strip him of his mutation. His body went limp, his immortality stripped from him. He was just a man now. I don't know if it would have a permanent effect, but he ain't be walking again anytime soon. Now, time to focus on the lady. I turned to Amelia next. Encased in the ice, her eyes were wide with terror. I touched the frozen surface of her crystal prison, absorbing her ability to vaporize matter and teleportation. Lastly, the third mutant, the one who had taken away my senses. He was backing away, his power flickering as the cold gnawed at his focus. His eyes were wide with panic as I approached, the storm raging around me. "Your turn," I said calmly, gripping his shoulder. "You see, I'm more curious about your mutation. How did you get out from my ice cage, and how the hell are you still walking in this temperature?" "You, my friend." I turned into icy dust and appeared behind him before grabbing his neck. "Are one heck of a mystery. What other power are you hiding in that body of yours?" "Wait. Don't tell me because I want to find it out myself." He tried to resist, his power flaring one last time, plunging the world into silence for a brief moment. But it was futile. The cold swallowed it whole, and his power became mine. I felt the strange sensory warping ability flow into me, making me grin wider. His control over the senses, something so unique, so OP, was now mine to wield. But there was something else. Something like body temperature control or similar power to that. Well, I'll find out eventually. The storm began to subside as I drew the last of his power into myself. The alley was eerily silent now, the three mutants lying unconscious at my feet, barely alive. Stripped of their abilities, they were nothing more than regular humans, weak, helpless, and unaware of how close they had come to death. By the time Jean and backup arrived, the battle was over. She came with Storm, Scott, Beast, Psylocke, and the Professor. They were surprised to see that I'd defeated 3 Omega-level mutants. Professor X used his power to make people around the place forget about what actually happened while the rest captured the 3 mutants, or now probably humans, for further interrogation. After that, the Professor, Beast, and Psylocke took them to the Shield's base for that interrogation, while the rest of us returned to the Academy. Location: Mutant Academy. My room. Sigh. My first official date with Jean just got ruined by those 3 bastards. But on the other hand, I got some really nice power. So, can we call it a win-win situation? Anyway, Jean and I were sitting on the bed right now. "You sure you aren't hurt?" Jean asked. "No. But sure I'm exhausted," I said, resting my back against the wall. Jean shifted closer, her soft hand reaching out to gently caress my cheek. Her emerald eyes were full of concern as she looked at me, brushing a strand of her red hair behind her ear. "You shouldn't push yourself like that," she murmured, her voice tender. "You pushed yourself during training, now this. You saved me today. A part of me is glad, but the other part is concerned." I chuckled lightly, though I couldn't help but feel the fatigue creeping into my bones. Using the ultimate form took a shit ton of stamina out of me. I'm pretty sure you would have done the same thing if you were in my place. So, how about we bury what happened and move forward? Since our first date was ruined, how about we plan a second one? I asked, flashing a playful grin at Jean. She smirked. "After a crazy fight, you're thinking of going on a second date? Don't you have anything else in mind?" "Like what?" I asked. She moved her hand down my chest, a mischievous glint in her eye. "Like something more intimate." Now that sounds interesting, I said, reaching out to cup her face, feeling her soft skin under my fingertips. I pulled her closer, my lips brushing against hers in a tender kiss. She tasted sweet and intoxicating, and I could feel the warmth of her body against mine as she leaned on me. Her fingers tangled in my hair, holding me close, and I found myself lost in the moment. "Jean," I whispered, my lips barely leaving hers. "I want you." "I know," she said softly, her voice low and breathless. "I've been waiting for you to say that." With that, she pushed me onto the bed, straddling my lap. Then Aron smashed the ever-living daylights out of Jean. We were lying on the bed, next to each other, panting and sweating. Jean smiled. That was good. Very good, in fact. It was awesome. I kissed her forehead. After a moment of silence, "You want to spend the night here?" I asked, brushing my fingers through her hair. She nodded slowly. "Yeah, I'd like that." I wrapped my arm around her as we both drifted into sleep. Third-person POV, meanwhile, Kitty's room. Kitty lay on her bed, completely stripped. She was furiously pleasuring herself while imagining Aron licking her just like he licked Jean. She imagined Aron kissing her neck as he shaboinked her. She wondered how good Jean must be feeling right now. Aron's tongue. It was so hot and slippery inside her mouth, and the way he sucked on her. She bit her lips, trying to keep herself from screaming. She could feel herself getting close. Her thoughts shifted toward Aron's big schlong. She imagined him pinning her down and completely dominating her. She wanted to suck him, taste him, and feel him. Her body trembled as pure white-hot pleasure erupted from deep within her. Her fingers were soaked, and her whole body ached with unparalleled intensity. Damn it! And here I thought I had a chance. But he didn't say anything when he saw me looking at them. Should I try asking him? No. What if he doesn't want me? Arg. Kitty turned around and buried her face in the pillow, trying to block out the images in her head. But as she tried to sleep, she couldn't get them out of her mind. Images of Aron furiously clapping Jean's cheeks dominated her mind. She sat up on the bed, unable to sleep. Sigh. Her body was still burning with desire. She needed another climax. Her eyes went toward the table clock. It was 4 in the morning. A weird thought struck her mind. Are they still going at it? Or maybe they fell asleep, and I can just climax while watching him. Without a second thought, she threw her night robe over herself and sneaked out of the room. Creeping down the hallway, she quietly made her way towards Aron's room. She peeked through the door, seeing him sleeping next to Jean. She quietly moved near them and ogled his bare torso. Her eyes wandered all over his body, taking in every inch of him. The light from the moon shone through the window and reflected off his sweaty skin, illuminating his body. She imagined herself lying next to Aron, touching him, stroking him. She couldn't help but let out a soft moan as she imagined how it would feel to have him. Damn it! Kitty cursed to herself as she somehow stood up and ran back to her room. I'm so screwed. What am I supposed to do now? How am I going to look at his face when he wakes up? Sigh. Shit. Next morning, Kitty was anything but calm. She walked around her room, nerves tingling and her mind racing with anxiety. She barely got any sleep last night after that pleasureful situation. What if Jean knows? What if Aron tries to talk to me? She thought, heart hammering in her chest. The memory of what she'd done last night played on a loop in her head. She didn't mean to sneak in, but old habits die hard. She wanted to ask him about the fight, but ended up in the room at a bad time. She could have silently run away, but couldn't, not after watching the scene before her eyes. The man she had a crush on for a long time was pleasuring another woman. Well, she was shocked, yet the more she watched, the more curious she became. It was hot. She had pleasured herself to him since she first saw him naked, but nothing compared to the sight of him and Jean shaboinking. I can't face them, she muttered under her breath. Determined to avoid any confrontation, Kitty quickly got dressed and decided to leave her room early. She could hear the others moving about in the mansion, preparing for another day of classes and training. I'll just keep my distance from them, yeah, that might work, she mumbled to herself, hurriedly slipping through her door and into the hallway. But as soon as she turned a corner, she came face to face with Aron. Hey Kitty, he called, his voice friendly but curious. Kitty's eyes went wide. Her heart skipped a beat. Oh no. No. Without thinking, she bolted. Aron smiled, knowing the reason behind her sudden sprint. "Kitty!" He called again, but she was already halfway down the hall, running as her life depended on it. Throughout the morning, Kitty went out of her way to avoid any situation where she might run into Aron or Jean. Thanks to her ability to pass through walls, she stole breakfast from the kitchen and decided to hole up in the library, hidden between stacks of old textbooks and dusty shelves. Every creak of the floor made her jump, thinking it was Jean, who could easily walk in, read her thoughts, and know everything. She's a telepath, for God's sake. She probably already knows. Kitty panicked, tugging at her hair. She could be reading my mind right now, and I wouldn't even know it. At one point, Kitty spotted Jean walking down the hall with a calm, easygoing smile, seemingly heading towards her. Kitty's stomach dropped, and she ducked into a nearby storage closet, closing the door as quietly as she could. Her breath came in shallow gasps as she crouched in the cramped space, waiting for Jean to pass. But her odd behavior didn't go unnoticed by her friends. "What's up with her?" Jubilee asked, raising an eyebrow as she watched Kitty duck behind a pillar when Jean walked by. "I don't know," Rogue replied, narrowing her eyes. "She's been actin' all jittery since this morning. I'm gettin' the feelin' something happened last night." Jubilee crossed her arms. "You think she did something she's embarrassed about?" "Or worse," Rogue added. "Maybe something happened between her, Aron, and Jean?" That thought hung in the air between them. Jubilee's eyes widened. "No way. You think she finally confessed to Aron?" "Wait. Probably Jean confessed to Aron first and poor Kitty got left out. Or do you think she saw something she shouldn't? Between Jean and Aron?" Rogue raised her eyebrows. "Yeah, I saw Jean go into Aron's room last night after that attack by Professor X's ex." Jubilee narrowed her eyes as she placed her chin over her arms. "Aron. Oh, Aron. You are really good. Bribing us so that you could go out with Jean. Something smells fishy." Rogue shrugged, but her mischievous smirk said she was enjoying the idea. Only one way to find out. Without another word, they decided to follow Kitty in secret, making sure to stay out of sight. Every time Kitty would check behind her shoulder, Jubilee and Rogue would dart into the nearest cover, trying not to giggle too loudly. As the day dragged on, Kitty's nerves only got worse. She could feel Aron's eyes on her during training exercises. He tried to catch her attention multiple times, but each time, she would avoid eye contact and make up some excuse to slip away. Jean seemed as composed as ever, but to Kitty, it only made things more terrifying. What if Jean was just pretending not to know? She thought, biting her lip. "Oh God, this is killing me." At lunch, Kitty barely touched her food, keeping her head down and staring at her plate while her friends talked around her. Jubilee and Rogue, still playing detective, exchanged knowing glances and whispered to each other. "You think she's gonna crack?" Jubilee muttered. "She looks like she's about to explode," Rogue whispered back. Kitty noticed their glances, her paranoia intensifying. Great, now they're suspicious too. After lunch, Kitty was walking through the gardens, thinking she'd found a safe place to escape everyone for a few moments. She was wrong. Jubilee and Rogue, having tailed her the entire time, were hiding behind a large oak tree, watching her every move. "You ready to ask her?" Jubilee whispered. Rogue nodded. "Let's do it." They stepped out from behind the tree just as Kitty was about to slip back inside. "Hey, Kitty!" Jubilee called out. Kitty froze. "Oh no, not them too. What's going on with you today?" Rogue asked. Kitty forced a nervous smile. "What do you mean?" I'm just tired, that's all." "Really? 'Cause you've been avoiding everyone like the plague," Rogue pointed out. "Something happen?" "No. Nothing happened." Kitty said a little too quickly, her voice high-pitched with panic. She backed up a step, only to realize she was cornered by the two girls. Jubilee narrowed her eyes. "Kitty, come on. Spill it. We saw you run away from Aron this morning." Kitty's face flushed bright red. She couldn't tell them. She couldn't tell anyone what she did last night. They'd think I'm a total perv. "I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, trying to inch her way out of the conversation. But Jubilee wasn't having it. "You don't know? Then why were you hiding in the storage closet when Jean walked by?" Kitty's heart stopped. "You saw that?" "Yeah, we saw," Rogue said, crossing her arms. So what's going on? Kitty could feel her pulse pounding in her ears. She needed an escape, but they had her trapped. Just as she opened her mouth to try and come up with some excuse, she heard a voice behind her. Kitty! She turned around and saw Aron walking toward her, concern etched on his face. Her eyes widened in panic. Oh God! Not now! Without another word, Kitty bolted again, sprinting away from them as fast as she could. Jubilee sighed. She's really not handling this well. Something big happened for sure, Rogue said, watching Kitty's retreating figure. Guess we're gonna have to keep an eye on her, till she cracks. Better, let's ask Aron. He's her crush after all, Jubilee smirked, looking at Aron who was approaching the two of them. Hey girls, have you seen Kitty? Aron asked. Oh, so that's what happened. Jean confessed to you and Kitty saw the two of you going at it like rabbits. Jubilee being Jubilee couldn't help but blurt it out. Well, what? His eyes widened in surprise. If it's Jubilee, then she will start a rumor, and there is no way he was going to let that happen. Oh, you did do something with Jean. Jubilee accused. No, it's not that. She's been acting weird all day, and I'm getting worried. Have you seen her? Jubilee smirked. So no rabbits. Aron sighed. You bays. All right, but you better treat her well. She has the hots for you, you know, Jubilee winked. Who? Kitty. He was shocked. He knew about it, but dismissed the idea thinking it was their usual prank. Thus, never chased Kitty that way. But how, why? When? I told you, remember? Garden 2 or 3 months ago. I stole your donut box again when you were busy getting your head around what I told you about Kitty having a crush on you, and Logan caught me that day. Jubilee said, smiling at the memory. You stole my donut box. He pointed at her. Yeah, and? Jubilee raised her brows, confused. And I thought it was a prank. You are the pranking queen, and there are at least hundreds of such instances. How was I supposed to know? You stole my donuts just after saying, you better treat Kitty well because she has a crush on you. What am I supposed to believe here? He sighed. Jubilee's mind worked weirdly, but it worked wonderfully. Well, she went toward the pool area. Better find her fast, Rogue added. I wouldn't want her to dive in, completely dressed. He rushed toward the pool and saw Kitty on the far side. Kitty felt him behind her. Go away. She yelled, tears almost falling from the edge of her eyes. Aron sat on the bench beside her, saying, Hey, Kitty. Why are you here? She asked, looking away from him. To check on you. Look, we need to talk, Aron started. About what happened last night. Kitty buried her face in her hands, shaking her head. No. Please. I am sorry. I didn't mean to. I just... Her voice broke. It's so embarrassing. Hey, calm down, he said softly, placing a hand on her back. I'm not mad or anything. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. How can you say that after what I did? Kitty said, still not looking at him. I shouldn't have watched, but I couldn't help it. It was just so hot. See, I'm such a perv. Jubilee says you have a crush on me, he said bluntly. Her heart stopped. Oh God, why did he have to bring that up now? She quickly turned to him, her face a bright red. What? And no, that's not true. Why would she say that? Your expression is giving you away, Aron pointed out. Is it true? Kitty looked away again, feeling the blush spreading across her cheeks. Maybe. But it doesn't matter now. I mean, Jean is going to kill me when she finds out what I did last night. She probably already knows and is just waiting to torture me. I could have stopped too, you know. But I didn't. I enjoyed every second of it, he said, making her heart flutter. So, I'm in as much trouble as you. But you know Jean, she always keeps her power up. So I'm pretty sure she noticed you last night and didn't say anything. You don't know that. She protested. Nope. So, isn't it better to just ask her? And if you're worried about what she'll think of you, think about my situation. I shaboinked her before you without saying anything. So do you think Jean would be pissed at you or busy killing me? Aron asked. I guess not, she admitted. But, how am I supposed to even look at her? It's so embarrassing. Nothing you can do about it now. So, Aron stood up and extended his hand toward her. Let's go. Afternoon classes got cancelled. So, she should be in her room. Kitty stared at his hand for a moment, trying to get up the courage to take it. What's the worst that could happen? She thought, finally taking his hand and letting him help her stand up. Jean will just read my mind, laugh at my stupidity, and tell me to get lost. Wait. But what if she also enjoyed the fact of being watched by me while Aron was licking and shaboinking her? She shook her head to clear her thoughts. Okay, let's go. Jean was sitting in her room, reading a book. She didn't want to go to the library since Jubilee and Rogue were there. She was surprised to see Jubilee of all people in the library. Guess she's more serious about studies than I thought. A little knock came from the door. Come in. The door opened and Kitty entered, with Aron right behind her. Jean, can we talk? Kitty asked quietly. Sure, come in, Jean nodded. Jean set her book down, her expression neutral but her eyes sharp. She had known Kitty was there that night. Long before Aron noticed her, Jean had felt Kitty's presence through the psychic link. At first, she found it odd. Why would Kitty sneak into the room? But the moment she read her mind, Jean understood everything. She could feel Kitty's shock, her jealousy, and how the jealousy slowly morphed into something else, desire. Instead of sending her away, Jean had decided to do nothing. In fact, she'd found it thrilling, knowing Kitty was watching. The intensity of her emotions only heightened Jean's own experience with Aron. She glanced at Kitty standing nervously in front of her. She could sense the torrent of emotions swirling within her. Guilt, embarrassment, fear. Hey, Jean said, her voice gentle but with an edge of amusement. You look nervous. Kitty shifted uncomfortably. She glanced at Aron, who gave her an encouraging nod, but that did little to ease the pounding in her chest. God, why did I even agree to this? She thought. I wanted to apologize, Kitty stammered, unable to meet Jean's eyes. For what I did last night. I know it was wrong. I didn't mean to, but Jean raised her hand to stop her. You're talking about when you watched me and Aron, she asked, her tone casual, as if they were discussing something trivial. Kitty's face went red and her mind was still trying to process what she just heard. Why yeah. I didn't mean to. I swear. Jean smiled almost mischievously and said, well, I'm not mad. Kitty blinked, her mind racing. What? Not mad? How could she not be mad? Jean stood up and walked over to her, her calm demeanor only making Kitty feel more on edge. In fact, she continued, I knew you were there. Kitty froze, her mouth slightly open. You knew. Jean nodded, her eyes studying Kitty with an intensity that made her shiver. I sensed your presence the moment you entered the hallway. I could have told you to leave, but I didn't. Kitty's heart was racing now, her mind unable to process what she heard. But why? She whispered. Jean leaned in closer, lowering her voice. Because I knew what you were feeling. I could sense everything. The jealousy, the desire, but most importantly, love. Love. Kitty stuttered. Yes, Jean said softly. Love. I could feel your love for Aron. You were sad too, weren't you? Kitty looked away, her mind in turmoil. She knew. Jean knew everything. She didn't want to admit it, but the truth was too obvious to deny. She's right. I am sad. Because he loves her, not me. So, I thought why not let you watch? Jean continued, her voice still low and seductive. After all, it wasn't like Aron and I were the only ones enjoying ourselves. Sigh. Aron sighed. And here I thought you were going to kick my ass for not telling you. Well, what can I say, it was a spur-of-the-moment decision, Jean said, still looking at Kitty. The three stood in silence for a moment, each lost in their own thoughts. Jean reached out, placing a hand on Kitty's shoulder. You don't have to feel guilty. It's normal to have desires. And as for watching, well, maybe you enjoyed it more than you're willing to admit. Kitty looked up at Jean, her breath catching in her throat. There was no judgment in Jean's eyes, just a knowing look that made Kitty's stomach twist in knots. She didn't know what to say, or how to react. She did enjoy it after all, not to mention she masturbated over and over again, and even sneaked in a second time just to see him naked. Jean glanced at Aron, then back to Kitty, a slight smirk playing on her lips. You know, Kitty, if you'd wanted to join us, all you had to do was ask. Kitty's eyes widened in shock. Join. What? No. Her voice faltered, completely caught off guard by the suggestion. Jean chuckled softly. Relax. I'm only teasing. Unless, of course, you want something more. Aron shifted uncomfortably again, unsure of how to respond to where this conversation was going. Jean, are you sure this is the right way to talk about this? She smiled, finally stepping back. We're just being honest, aren't we? No reason to hide anything. Kitty, her face still flushed, bit her lip nervously. She couldn't believe what was happening. She had expected anger, or at least awkwardness, but this was something entirely different. And the worst part was, part of her wasn't entirely opposed to what Jean was suggesting. She had been drawn to Aron for so long, and the intensity of her emotions last night was undeniable. I don't know, Kitty mumbled, unsure of how to navigate this situation. Jean tilted her head, her voice was soft. It's up to you. But don't let guilt eat you up. There's nothing wrong with desire. Aron finally spoke, trying to steer the conversation away from its current trajectory. Look, what happened last night is complicated, but we don't have to make this weird. We just need to talk and figure things out. No pressure. Kitty nodded, still feeling like she was in over her head. She glanced at Jean, who gave her a reassuring smile, and then back at Aron, who looked as lost as she felt. Okay, Kitty finally said. I'll think about it. But I just don't want things to be awkward between us. Jean smiled. It doesn't have to be. We're all adults here. Kitty wasn't so sure about that, but for now, it seemed like the best she was going to get. She walked out of the room. Really? Aron looked at Jean. What? She smirked before sitting on the bed and lying on her back. A threesome. Yeah, don't you want to? I mean, she does love you. I read her mind. She's crazy about you. So, why break her heart? Let's do it, she said, looking at him seductively as she rested her head on her arm. You are insane. She finished his sentence. I know. But don't worry, we'll take it slow and easy. First, she'll need to get used to it. And then we'll start with a little touch here and there. You know, just to warm her up to the idea. After that, we can move on to something more intense. You seem to have put a lot of thought into this. Oh, trust me, I have. Ever since last night, I've been thinking about what it would be like to be in her place and watch my man smash another girl. She licked her lips as she stared at him. It makes me feel so wet and hot. Aron shook his head in disbelief, but he couldn't help smiling. He walked over to her and leaned down to kiss her. After parting. Huh. Did her eyes just glow?
And that concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd seriously love it if you guys could leave a like on the video, as it genuinely helps out so much, and it keeps me going, plus it takes only 1 second. That said, have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.